IB Nation, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Monday. Hope everybody had a fun and relaxing weekend. Spring football is kicked off. Notre Dame's Pro Day is tomorrow, so offseason's rocking and rolling. We're back with another week of content, man. It's good to have football back in the air just a little bit.
It
is.
Got football, got big recruiting visits. We've had some intel on the premium board about it. I just dropped some updates on quarterback Neiman Lawrence, Trev, who everybody knows you and I are super high on. Dropped an update on also Lucas Prock, and then, of course, Albert Simeon, big-time offensive lineman from Louisiana, whose film we watched last week. So if you're a premium member, go check that stuff out. All of our updates will be on the premium message board. So had a very, very successful recruiting weekend. Nobody committed, but they weren't necessarily pushing for anyone to commit. They did a great, great job. So if you have any questions about that, go ahead and hit me up on the premium board, and I'll answer whatever your questions. But today, Trevor, buy, so hold. Loads of great submissions from our members at our Irish Breakdown. Obviously, buy, so hold. The answers and the submissions and our responses we give out to all of you. But the people that ask the questions or submit the buy, so holds kind of proposals, it only comes from premium message board members. Or if you want to get a message in, you can throw a super chat in there. But, Trev, I have to say, like anything, there's always ebbs and flows. But I've expected a lot more off days this off season on buy, so hold from our members, because it's like, what else can we talk about? But once again, this week, the IB members have brought it on the buy, so hold, and it's going to be a really fun show. Really fun show. If you want to get a submission in, you can always put a super chat in. But as we always say, if you're not a member, use that money to sign up for a membership. And then, of course, we have somebody with a late congrats, Brian Sullivan. Trev, congrats to you and your wife. Obviously, that's in response. Thank you, Brian. That's in response to the news that Trevor broke last week that he is a dad. And it will be that sucker's already growing in there, and he's going to be coming out here in the fall. So we're very, very excited about that. And so, yeah, man, it's great stuff. But, hey, Trev, how was your weekend? And are you ready to rock and roll on this week's Buy, So Hold, man?
Weekend was good. Got to see spring practice on Friday. Spent some time with the family this weekend. Always kind of recharges the batteries a little bit. And Brian, you know me. I stay ready, never have to get ready for things like buy, sell, hold, man.
That's
you
right.
know how that stuff goes.
Oh, to be young again. It's like, I'm just trying to get out of bed this morning, man. Trev wakes up. Trev's like, buy, sell, hold, baby, let's roll. And his wife's like, what are you doing? So, yeah, man, I'm ready to go. So, well, without further ado, Trev, since there's so many, let's not spend a lot of time talking about everything else. Let's dive right into the buy, sell, holds. Obviously, our guy, Salty Virginia Peanuts, will kick things off. And Trev, is a bit of a change up. I'm going to read the first buy, sell, hold submission, and then you can answer it, and then we can get into our normal routine. But Salty says, once a program has established success in recruiting and transfer portal activity, the most important factor for its continued success is continuity in the coaching staff. Most importantly, the head coach and the offensive and defensive coordinators. For the players, it is continuity at quarterback. What say you, Mr. Trowbridge?
Yeah, I mean, Salty, this is a really good submission. It's a great way to get us kicked off here. I'm going to buy this, because when you start talking about continuity in the coaching staff, you start talking about culture and the buy-in of your program. Let's take Notre Dame for an example. It's a Notre Dame show. And we've had assistants leave. We've had coordinators leave. In the last 2 seasons, Al Golden's left. Elam McCullough has left. Max Bull has left. Mike Mickens, Al Washington. So a lot of coaches have came and gone. But what has been some of the overarching messaging that we've heard the last going on now 5 years? It's the gold standard. It's challenge everything. It's competitive spirit. It's, TGS. They say it at the end of every practice. And that identity of Notre Dame's program has stayed because their head coaches stayed. Now, there are some programs that can go and experience a change at the top of the program, and level of success to varying degrees maintain the same. But in large part, why has Georgia always been around the national championship discussion? Kirby Smart's been there. They've had coordinators come and go. They've had players and quarterbacks come and go, but Kirby Smart's still there to drive the success on the field. We can have a different discussion of what's been happening off the field in Athens, but in terms of program level of success, Kirby's there to drive that message home. Same thing with Ryan Day in Columbus. So a lot of different things have been coming and going, but as long as your head coach maintains, I buy that. And then for players, I think it kind of depends. Notre Dame's in an interesting spot this year where they have their first returning starting quarterback in the last 5 years. But this isn't the first time in the last 5 years that we've felt confident about this program moving forward. I think with a program like Marcus Freeman's, where they want to be a line-driven program, I think a lot of continuity in the trenches is big, especially for programs like Notre Dame. So while quarterback, I definitely understand where you're coming from there, but I would feel a lot more confident, and I feel a lot more confident about what CJ Carr can do this season because of what the offensive line looks like. So I'm actually going to sell players one and go with offensive line.
I'm going to go backwards, Trev, because I'm going to sell the players one also, because I think this used to be true in college football, not anymore.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because this era of the transfer portal has turned college football into an annual like game of, like, I'm trying to think of the name of the game. I cannot believe I cannot remember the name of this game, but the chairs, right?
Duck, Duck, Goose?
No, where you walk
musical
on
chairs.
Musical chairs. It's turned into a game of musical chairs, right? You can tell how long it's been since I played that. It's a couple decades more than played it.
You're not playing that on the weekends, bro? Come on.
No. Yeah, it's just me and Ange too, which gets real weird.
Just one chair.
What I mean? It's just like one chair, and it's like she didn't like it when Goldberg speared her the other day to get there. She wasn't a big fan of that action, so we decided not to play it anymore. But and then we tried it with Rita and Sadie. But like they just looked at us like we were idiots, and we're like, dude, we're dogs. So it got weird. So but it's just like, look at the last two national champions, Trev. They're transfer portal guys. Like first year guy, and not even second year transfer portal guys. They're first year transfer portal guys. You look at the teams that have played for the championship in the 12-team playoff. Both teams that have made it all the way to the championship game in both years were guys who were in their first years of programs. This past year, Carson Beck was a first-year player at Miami. They lost to Indiana, who had a first-year quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. In 2024, Ohio State was there with Will Howard, who was a first-year transfer from K-State, and they beat Notre Dame, who had a first-year transfer in Riley Leonard. Both of the teams that they beat were teams that had quarterbacks who had been multiple year starters in 2024. In 2025, it was a little bit different than it was in 24, because you really only had one quarterback that had been somewhere more than a year in the semifinals, and that guy was also a transfer who was only in his second year, and that being Dante Moore. 3 of the 4 final of the teams in the semifinal, or in the semifinals this year, were teams that had a first-year quarterback, because if you include Trinidad Chambliss at Ole Miss. So you look at it, Trev, and that used to be true, because you often had third-year starters going against a first-year starter. You don't have that as much anymore. Now it's like a bunch of teams that with new quarterbacks. And so I agree with you. I think it's continuity in the trenches, and as best you can, continuity in the trenches, both sides of the ball. I'll expand a little bit more, because like Ohio State had some injuries and things like that on their O-line, but their D-line was veteran and all guys that had been there the year before. Indiana had a couple transfer offensive linemen, but like their D-line and the rest of their O-line were guys that had been there and been through the battles the year before in the playoffs and all that. And, and same thing with obviously Notre Dame, their, especially their defensive line was there. Not a lot of new guys on the Notre Dame defensive line the last 2 years. So I still think continuity at those positions is important. From a coaching standpoint, I buy it to a degree. But whether or not, I think most importantly is the O-line, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, depends on the quality of the head coach. Because if the head coach is consistent and the head coach is good, then you can sustain losing coordinators because you've done a great job. And then it's you just keep cycling through new really good coordinators. But if your head coach is not the reason that you're winning, and maybe the reason you're winning is because he did make that one great hire at offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, then it becomes a little bit more concerning. But I do think if you were going to rank them, it is head coach, coordinators, and then line coaches is the way that I would layer those levels of importance. But I do believe coaching continuity is very important. The Indiana coaches were new-ish, but it was their second year there, but they had all been together for a while, a lot of them. And I think that allowed, there was continuity for them and continuity for a big chunk of the players that had come with them from James Madison, which we've talked about in the past. So I do think coaching continuity is very, very important.
Absolutely. And to that list of coaches that Salty listed off and that you also listed off, I would also throw in the strength and conditioning coach in there as well. They help set the tone of the offseason, start to build that culture around in the offseason. Brick by brick is what Notre Dame talks about a lot. And obviously, Lauren Landau plays a big piece in setting the culture at Notre Dame as well. So I would put them in that conversation. From B-Jam and 41, after just 1 year of playing and after just 1 day of practice this year, you can confidently make the case that Tae Johnson will be an All-American in 26.
Well, I will confidently say that I expect him to be. Yeah, I mean, I buy that. I expect him to be. I can't confidently say that he's going to do that because after one practice, he had, 2 picks, looked great. Well, that's exactly what he did in the first practice of fall 2025. And they still decided not to start him and play him more than 10 snaps against Miami. So like the first practice doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It's really good for Tae. I know Tae can make those flashy plays. I know he can have days like that. The big key for Tae is going to be, like a lot of guys going into their second-year starters, it's also true for C.J. Carr. It was also true for Leonard Moore this past year in 2025, was be more consistent. And we talked about that with Leonard Moore. I mean, he was great in 2024 as a true freshman, but there was a consistency issue that he had to improve, which again is true for all freshmen. And he did that, and that's why he was even better in 2025 than he was in 2024. And the same thing is going to be true for Tae this year. Now, it was a little harder, in my opinion, for guys like Drake Bowen and Don Schuler and some of those guys to kind of be better in year 2 because they were learning a new defense. And so it took them a little bit longer, but that won't be the case for Tae. He's going into year 2 of a defense that he played in his first year as a starter. And so, yeah, my expectation is that he will be an All-American, but I don't think that Friday's practice has a whole lot to do with that. That was more of just like, yeah, we've seen that from Tae before. And it's kind of dismissive, but like, that's a good thing because you're impressed by it. And you're like, man, what a great play. But you're not like, I didn't see that coming. You're like, yeah, that's Tae, and that's why he's a stud. So with that being said, yeah, I mean, he should be. Here's the big thing for Tae, Trev. He's got to stay healthy. That's going to be, he was banged up in high school. He's a little banged up as a freshman. He got banged up at the end of this year. He's got to prove he's healthy. And if he does, I'll be shocked if he's not an All-American by the end of the year.
We're in the same boat there, man. I also expect him to be. I went as far to say is like, look, when we were giving our practice report afterwards, and I was doing the show from my dad's dungeon, as people like to call it, up in South Bend.
Somebody thought you were locked in my closet.
No.
Yeah. I said I would never do that to Trevor because the sound would reverberate and you could hear him talking through my microphone. So it'd be dumb for me to put him in the closet. It's terrible. I'd put him in the neighbor's closet maybe, but not mine.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would I do that?
No, Brian's been cool. He lets me out 3 times a week. We're cool, but I went as far to say that I do expect Tae Johnson to be an All-American this year, but I'm selling that I can confidently state the case now for the reason that you brought up. If we had like a little crystal ball, then I could look into the future and say Tae Johnson was healthy for all 12 games of the regular season, I think I'd be able to state the case. Think I'd be able to project stats a little bit based on what he did last year. And then you factor in, well, okay, just improvement from year 1 to year 2 as a starter. But it's that health piece. But I do expect him to be one this year. I'm with you completely. Another one from B-Jam and Buy Sell Hold. You wouldn't trade the Notre Dame defense for the 2023 Michigan defense.
Hold. And here's why I'm going to hold that, B-Jam, and because we haven't seen this defense play yet beyond one practice. The Michigan defense, it's always challenging arguing the knowns versus the unknowns, right? Like the unknown being, okay, I think this unit can be insert things that you like, but, and then insert reasons that you're concerned. Here's what I'll say. I will buy that Notre Dame has a better secondary without any hesitation than what Michigan had in 2023. I will buy that Notre Dame has a better linebacker situation than what Michigan had in 2023. What I have a hard time buying is the Michigan D line compared to the Notre Dame defensive line, because there's a lot of new to this. I mean, Mason Graham was a stud for Michigan that year. I mean, they had him, they had Chris Jenkins, they had Kenneth Grant, Chris Jenkins, Rayshon Benny. I mean, 3 of those 4 guys were very high draft picks. They had Braden McGregor. They had Jalen Harrell. I mean, that was a really deep offensive line that had proven itself that it could play at a high level. Do I think the Notre Dame 2026 defensive line can be better than that? Yes, I think it can be better than that. But I've only seen Tion Gray and Francis Brew and Keon Keeley in one practice. I've only seen this slightly slimmed down, twitchy version of Armel Mukam, this puffed up, massive, really impressive looking Chris Burgess for one practice. And so I'm not ready to go there yet. And then, of course, the final piece is, Trev, it's the defensive coordinator. Look, the guy that was the defensive coordinator for that Michigan team in 2023 is now the head football coach for the Baltimore Ravens. And the guy that was the is going to be the defensive coordinator for Notre Dame is a guy that has to prove himself. That I'll just say that, and we'll leave it at that. But no, I think it has the potential to be better. So that's why I'm not going to sell it, because I think it can be better, but I can't buy it yet because I just need to see a little bit more from this defensive line with a bunch of brand new coaches. So I'm going to hold it for now. But I will say this, B-Jammin, because I hate holding. If the defense plays to its potential and Chris Ash coaches all year with the same philosophy of defense that we saw in the last 8 games of the year, this defense will be better than Michigan's, and I would buy this submission. But for now, I got to hold it.
I'm with you. I think hold's the right answer here. I mean, you can also talk about the result of what that defense did. That defense brought in a national championship. Now, to your point, this is a championship caliber roster. And I'm with you. I would take Notre Dame's linebacking core and their secondary. But if Marcus Freeman wants to be a line-driven program, they're going to need this 2026 Notre Dame D-line to play like that 2023 Michigan defensive line. They were first in the country in scoring defense, 6th in the country in rush defense, and 2nd in the country in overall pass defense, factoring in postseason play as well. And you and I we are 2 guys under the assumption that Notre Dame's defense can be all of that in 2026. But it's just that seeing it factor. So I'm with you. I'm holding that one as well. But it's nice to be able to have that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Because after week 2 of last year, I would not have had this discussion.
Yes. Yeah. If you'd have told me after game 2 that, hey, Brian, someone's going to ask you in this offseason if you'd trade this defense for the 2023 Michigan defense, and I'd have said, heck yes, right now, let's do it, because that team could have won a championship. If I could go back and start the 2025 season over and give them the 23 Michigan defense, yeah, I think they won a title last year. But that's not how it works. Do I think the 26 defense can be that good? I do. I expect it to be. It's talent-wise it is. It's got to prove a little bit more, and it's got to get coached right. I will say this. I also think that it has the assistant coaching staff in place now also to do that. Like, not that they didn't have that last year, but like when you lose 3 coaches in an offseason, it can be potentially problematic to where it can be a step back. Can you really replicate? Like, I think the coaches that left did a great job. Like, I'm not. So like, it's like, okay, can you replace them with a staff that can also do a great job? And I think that Marcus Freeman did that. And I don't really care to get into are they better, just as good, not quite as good? I don't really care to get into that conversation. Here's the only thing that matters to me. Is this a coaching staff that, if they can all work together, has the chops to build a championship caliber defense? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I care about. I don't know why it went back. I wasn't even touching there we go.
From B-Jammin, you would trade Notre Dame's defense for the 2017 Alabama defense.
Well, I'm going to give you the same answer that I gave the last one, hold. Because I'll say it again. Right now, with what we know about the 2017 Alabama defense, I would that was a better defense than what we know about this defense. That defense gave up 11.9 points per game, Trev. That defense was really, really good. They went to the playoffs and held Clemson to 6 points, and then Georgia scored 23 points in overtime. looking at their record that year, they gave up 23 points in a game, 24 points in a game, 26 points in a game, 23 points in a game. 4 times they gave up over 20 points, but they had 2 shutouts and held 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams, including a playoff team, to less than 10 points. And 2 other teams scored 10 points. Like, that was dominant. Is Notre Dame as good as that now? No. Can I confidently tell you without a shadow of a doubt that defense this year will be better than that? No, I can't. Do I feel like this defense has a chance to be that good? I do. I'm telling you guys, I think this defense is absolutely elite front to back in potential, but it's still potential. And while it has a chance to be that, I just need to see. So I'm starting off with 2 holds, which I hate, but at least I feel like I'm giving you context as to why, and telling you that, like, yeah, I think this team has the opportunity to be better than that. And so I like that he asked it 2 different ways, but either way, the answer is, if this defense plays to its potential, I would take it over each of those defenses.
Yeah, we see that the same. Look, those are 2 defenses that won national championships, and we can sit here all the live long day and talk about how Notre Dame's a favorite on FanDuel to win the national championship, and they got a Heisman Trophy contender, and they got the talent to do it. But until you cross that finish line, some of it is speculation to a degree. And I don't have to speculate if Alabama's defense in 2017 won a national championship. I watched them do it. And so until that point, I think holds the right answer. I'm with you there. Let's switch gears here to more Notre Dame specific things that kind of happened here recently. Biso hold, you would rather have access to the first day of spring practice and the last day of spring practice rather than access to 3 straight days in the middle of spring.
100% buy. Yes, it's 1 less practice, but I feel like spring practice is an evolution of your football team. And the cool thing for a coaching or for not a coaching staff, but also coaching staff, but for us in the media and guys that I think are football guys, is it gives you an ability when you see that first practice and you see the final product to kind of see the evolution and the growth of this football team. Even though we'd get more practices in the middle, that would be better for content, but that would not necessarily be better for the growth of the football team. Because in the blue gold game, we're not going to see a finished product. We're not going to see the finished product that we would in the last practice, for example, because there's going to be guys sitting out. You're mixing and matching teams in a lot of years. It's like, okay, the left side of the line is on the blue team. The right side of the line is on the gold team. It's like, it's not the same thing. I love it. I think there's merit to keeping it forever. I hope that they never get rid of it, but it's also not the same measuring stick as like the final big scrimmage you have, with fans not there. So I would much rather have that than the extra practice. What I would prefer, obviously, other than being at every practice, but like a realistic of where Notre Dame is, instead of the 2 20-minute periods, give us 1 practice at the beginning, 1 practice in the middle, and 1 practice at the very end. That's what I would prefer, as opposed to the 2 20-minute periods.
Agreed completely. You and I see this the same. I'm very much looking forward to going to see their last practice, because that's the true best on best. You're not going to see best on best in the blue gold game because of the things that you laid out. Mm-hmm. So this is an absolute buy for me.
Yep.
How about this one? The best team this season in the North, Notre Dame. The South is Texas. The West is Oregon, and the East is Miami.
So we're going to buy so hold each one.
Yeah.
I will say the best team in the North is Notre Dame. I will buy that Notre Dame is the most talented team in the North. But I would say that Notre Dame still needs to prove that they're the best team by doing what Indiana, Ohio State, and Michigan have all done the last 3 years, which is win a championship. Is there a team with a better roster than Notre Dame right now in the North? No, there's not. But there are 3 teams with very, very recent national championships in their trophy case. Notre Dame does not have that. So I'll buy it with a caveat that I'm basing my best on talent and best roster more so than necessarily best team, and I'm going to do that for all of these.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could argue Notre Dame had the most talent of any team in the North last year, but that doesn't mean that they were the best team. So right. I get you completely. So I'm buying the talent piece with that caveat. How about in the South, Brian? Going with Texas.
By that as well. Texas, obviously, South is much broader here in that instance. But yes, I would go with Texas. We've talked about this, Trev, and I'll buy the next one too, the West. I've said this. I think right now, based on what we know, the three best rosters in college football are Notre Dame, Texas, and Oregon. I think right now those are the three best teams in college football, like rosters in college football. So that makes all of those buys. Will they be the best teams? That I don't know. I mean, if you're looking at teams defining team as program, then I'd sell all of these because the best team in the South is still Georgia. The best team in the North is I would say probably Ohio State because there's greater continuity and consistency. And the best team in the West would be, I mean, you could say Oregon, but I'd argue Washington's made deeper runs than Oregon in recent years, So, but Oregon maybe. The East, Miami. I mean, we're getting real loose with the notion of East being Miami, especially since Miami's more South than Texas. But I'll go with your submission and basically just say East Coast. Any state affiliated with the East Coast, and say, if you're going to say Miami, then you have to say that Georgia is also East Coast. And if you're going to say that, then I have to go with Georgia. It's still the best team in the East. Yeah. So basically, in order to count Miami, then we have to say the East is any state that borders on the Atlantic Ocean, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. It's Georgia.
Yep. Yeah, if we're going with team, I'm with you in Georgia. Miami, it's kind of similar to the Notre Dame conversation about like top level talent. Miami's a very talented football team, but I don't know how good of a team they're going to be because they have some new pieces. Darian Mensah's a new quarterback that's in town. Cooper Barcotti's a new wide receiver that's in town. Damon Wilson is a new edge rusher that's in town. So you got some moving pieces there. So if we're going with continuity within programs, I'm absolutely going Georgia. But if we are talking about talent like we did with Notre Dame, I think that becomes a little bit more interesting of a conversation. But by and large, I'm with you. Let's talk some linebackers here, Brian. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Linebacker groups, and B-Jammin 41 was a sweetheart, and he went with all current linebackers so I can play along as well. But group
that's very well done, B-Jammin. Very well done.
It is. I appreciate you. So linebacker group number one is Jalen Smith, Drake Bowen, and I'm assuming Brian Smith from like that 07 to okay.
Yep.
Group number two is Manti Te'o, Tavon Coney, and Maris Liufau. And then group number three is JOK, Jack Kaiser, and Drew Tranquil.
That is tough.
Yeah.
The one I'm going to sell is probably JOK, Kaiser, and Tranquil for two reasons. Number one, it's small. Number two, I don't have a natural Mike in that group.
Yep.
You could move Drew to Mike, but now the gap between Drew at Mike compared to Manti is pretty big. The gap at and then here's the reason that I'm going to hold the second group, because now it's like, okay, now you gave me two pure Mikes in Tavon Coney and Manti. Maris Liufau can play Will, he can play Rover, but he gave it there. And then I'm going to buy the third one, or I'm going to buy the first one, and I'm going to hold the second one because I think the top two in the second one is better than the top two in the third one. But I'm going to buy the first one because I have a natural Mike in Drake Bowen. I have a natural Will in Jalen Smith, and I have a guy in Brian Smith that can back up both positions. If I needed to start all three, I could put Brian Smith or Drake at Will and put Jalen Smith at Rover and be pretty loaded. But in a two-man defense, I would go Jalen Smith and Drake Bowen with Brian Smith rotating, and I have a really nice blend of players.
Yeah, we have the same order. I'm buying group number one with Jalen Smith and Drake Bowen, simply for the fact that if I'm running a 4-2-5 defense, seeing Drake Bowen and Jalen Smith on the field at the same time would be incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm holding the second group, and then we have the same concerns with the third group. Just no natural Mike. There's some guys that could potentially, but then we get into, okay, let's say you stick Jack Kaiser at Mike because he's a good leader and a good communicator. Who are you taking as a Mike? Manti Te'o, Drake Bowen, or Jack Kaiser? And then it becomes a clear separator. So I'm with you.
Yeah. Good question.
At,
Oops.
at least 7 of the uncommitted recruits in 2027 who visited this weekend will sign with Notre Dame.
All right, let me look at my visitor list here real quick, and just to kind of go over it, because my initial reaction is to buy this, but I just want to go through the visitor list. I won't say who, but let's go. Okay, so uncommitted players. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, and then one of these other 4. Yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah, I'll buy that.
Love it. Let's switch gears to movies. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Prison movies. Bad Boys in 1983, not to be confused with Bad Boys with Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. Shawshank Redemption, and then Escape from Alcatraz.
We'll leave this one up to you, Trev, because I've never seen Bad Boys from 1983, and I've never watched Shawshank Redemption all the way through.
So I'm buying Shawshank Redemption. I think that's one of the that is one of my favorite movies of all time. So that's a buy for me. And then I kind of have to sell the other 2 because I have not seen the other 2. But I love Shawshank.
Yep. I hear that a lot. I've just never sat and watched all of it.
Buy, sell, hold from D-Troll Hunter. Nothing is more frustrating than a team that is not disciplined when it comes to penalties.
Yes, buy. Well, I mean, you're being hyperbolic than nothing, I think, because I mean, a team that I would rather have a team that has a lot of dumb penalties than a team that turns it over a lot. So I guess I'll sell that. Nothing is more frustrating than when you turn the ball over a lot. But I think he's asking the question in a different spirit than that. So then I'll say yes. Dumb penalties, like fault, not discipline penalties. Offsides, false starts, holds because you weren't using your technique, things like that. I can live with a couple penalties where, my O lineman held a guy because he was about to get the quarterback killed, or receiver tackles, a DB tackles a guy for a 15-yard pass interference because he was about to give up a 50-yard touchdown. Like, okay, sometimes there's smart penalties. And then there's penalties that are aggressive penalties, which I can kind of live with. Yeah, they're 15 yards, but I kind of live with that. But when you're just false starts and just holds and offsides, just things that are just like, dude, better than that. That drives me absolutely nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely understand the spirit of where you're coming from. I think a false start is probably the most inexcusable penalty in football. I've said that before. I hate seeing them. They bother me. But I'll say this. I think the most frustrating thing for me is a very talented team that gets hindered by the injury bug. Because I want to be upset at something. I'm not going to be mad at the player for getting injured, but it just kind of negates some of the talent. I think back to the injury bug that Notre Dame had to go through in 2015, some of the injuries that hampered a potential national championship in 2024. So that is probably the most frustrating thing for me is teams that get hit, a very talented team that get hit with an injury bug.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's so frustrating because you sit and have a lot of conversation of what if or what could have been, or, if this guy was available, then maybe, then this. So that would probably be it for me. TCU quarterback Jaden Craig can be successful this season, making the leap from Harvard.
Can be sure, but I'll sell. I think that's a big leap, number one. He did well in the Ivy League last year, threw for 28-69. Would they only play like 11 games? 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, not much of a runner, which concerns me a little bit. 61% completion rate, which is okay. But here's the thing that concerns me, Trev, is some of his bigger games, he had a lower completion percentage, threw for 305 against Merrimack, but he threw, 58.9% completions, threw for 306 against Yale in a big loss, but, it's 54% completion rate, But then in the playoff game against Villanova, they got crushed, and he went 9 of 21 for 107 yards and was not impressive in that game. That was ramped up competition, and he did not do well, which concerns me a little bit. It really does. So, yeah, I will point to that and say that bothered me. There was a kid, by the way, that I'm looking forward to seeing at Harvard this year that played a bunch in that game. And I don't know if they've moved him to running back. I don't know what the deal is, but they had a kid named DJ Gordon, who this year is a freshman, rushed for 448 yards and 5 touchdowns, looking at their stats. I think they've moved him to running back because he didn't throw any passes. But he's an Indiana kid that I loved in high school. I was really hoping he'd go to like an Air Force or a Navy or something like that because he's a wicked smart kid. He ended up deciding to go to Harvard. That's not exactly like a big step back, but from those other places. But he was a really dynamic athlete. So it's not surprising that they're going to move him to a skill position. But I would have liked to seen him. He would have been filthy running the Navy offense or the Army offense. Filthy. But yeah, I'll sell. Can be yes, but I'll sell. My prediction will be that I sell.
Yeah, I'm selling this one as well. That's a big jump, especially for a quarterback to make. I'm under the impression that there are some position groups that have more success than others, making big jumps from certain divisions in college football, and quarterback is just tough because the success rate is relatively low for quarterbacks, in my opinion, that make that big of a jump. You can have some that go from like lower tiered P4 schools or high tiered G5 schools, have good seasons, but I would not consider Harvard a high tier G5 school for football. So
yeah,
that one's
tough. I want to say this real quick too. Going back to the previous question from before these two, this one right here from B Jammin. I did see Escape from Alcatraz with Clint Eastwood. I did see that one, but I count somebody in the chat said this also. I count Gladiators a prison movie, sort of. But the other best prison movie to me, and I know it wasn't the same type of prison movie, but I loved The Rock. That was a great movie. And technically they weren't prisoners, but it was almost the entire movie was fought at a prison. So I would say those are some missed opportunities for great prison movies there, B Jammin'. The rest of your submissions were awesome, though.
Let's continue the TCU conversation. TCU upgraded at offensive coordinator this offseason. This one, I believe, was an upgrade. I felt like Kendall Briles is severely overrated.
Let me look and see who they hired. I do agree that Kendall Briles is overrated, but I need to see who their new offensive coordinator is. They hired Gordon Samus, who was at UConn the last couple of years. I honestly, I would have to hold this because I don't know enough about what they did at UConn. I know they had a great year at UConn. And their offense was good. I don't know enough about him to answer this question, but I'll buy the notion that you had in your brackets that Kendall Briles is severely overrated. He's a solid coach, but he's still making money because of how good his dad was as an offensive coordinator. His dad was a genius offensive mind, still is probably, but yeah.
I'm with you. Baylor and DJ Lagway are the biggest mystery team in the Big 12 this season.
I'll buy that. Yeah, I'll buy that. I mean, because part of it is this, Trev, is DJ Lagway defines Baylor in that you never know what you're going to get week to week and get in season to season with Baylor. And that's been, I think, one of the frustrations of the Dave Aranda era is there's no consistency to what they do from season to season and then from week to week. He goes 2-7 in his first year, 2-12 the next year, then they go 6-7, 3-9, then they improve to 8-5, and then they drop down to 5-7. And then, when you watch Baylor this year, it's like in week 2, they go on the road and have a really good like overtime win on the road against what turned out to be a pretty good SMU team. And that comes after a home loss to Auburn where they're about to go up like 10-0, and then they make just one of the worst fourth down series of inside the 5 calls I've ever seen from an offensive coordinator. Get stuff, and then Auburn ends up smacking them. And it's just like, how do you look like that against, SMU and then look like you did in some of those other weeks? And it just like how do you lose a barn burner to TCU and then go out in Arizona State and then get blown out by Cincinnati? You know what I mean? It's like very inconsistent football team. Well, that's exactly what DJ Lagway is as a quarterback. There's moments where you're like DJ Lagway, like, oh, there's that 5-star quarterback that we've all been waiting for. And then there's other times you're like, did this dude just start learning how to play quarterback? Like, is he like a converted linebacker or something like that? Because I, for the life of me, can't figure out what this guy's doing. And so it's like that makes it very difficult to evaluate him. The same kid, like he against LSU, perfect example, 287 yards, 33 of 49, some decent things there, 1 touchdown, 5 picks. The next week, Miami, 12 of 23 for 61 yards. The next week, 21 of 28 for 298 yards and 2 touchdowns in a dominant, convincing win over Texas. Like, tell me how that works. Pretty good the next week against Texas A&M in a loss. 21 of 37, 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. The next week, 280 yards, 20 of 34 against Mississippi State. The next week, he goes 15 of 24 for 166 yards against Georgia. The next week's after that, 11 of 19 for 83 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks against Kentucky. Then he goes 16 of 31 for 218 yards against Ole Miss. Now, not a brilliant performance, but certainly better than he looked the week before against Kentucky. It's you never know what you're going to get, right? It's like, Baylor and DJ Lagway are like a box of chocolates, right? You never know what you're going to get. And that's why I think they're a perfect marriage. And if he can't be consistent, then they won't be consistent. And here's the one thing I will say with certainty about Baylor this year. Unless there's some changes, there will be at least 2 games where Baylor looks like, dude, that team is dangerous. DJ will play great, and they're going to upset somebody. Or look like, dude, if they play like this next week, they're going to upset somebody. And then they're going to have some loss where you're like, what was that? And that's what makes it difficult to evaluate them, which makes them the biggest mystery.
Yeah, D-Troll, I buy that they're definitely in the conversation. I'll say this. I think Baylor and DJ Lagway, especially Dave Aranda, has the most writing on this season in the Big 12 because of DJ Lagway. Because I think that's a boomer bust pickup in the transfer portal. Biggest mystery, I think we kind of answered it. It's inconsistency.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I know that's what we're going to get from Baylor and DJ Lagway this year. One week they're going to go out and play Utah on the road. I don't know if they're on their schedule, but they'll go out and play Utah on the road and beat them by 2 touchdowns. And then the next week they'll lose to Colorado. But in my mind, it's like, that's why I can't say that it's a mystery because that's just what they've been. But I buy that they have the biggest writing on it. I think they are in the conversation I think Utah is a mystery. Kyle Whittingham is now gone. Is their season going to play out the way that they had hoped of, kind of moving on from Kyle Whittingham? He got them to, the farthest that they could go, which was an 11-2 season. I think Arizona State's kind of a mystery. Is Cutter Boley going to work out for that coaching staff and for that team to go along with some of the other really good portal pickups that they had? So there's a lot of mystery in the Big 12 this year. I think Baylor's definitely a part of the discussion.
Well, one thing's for sure, they upgraded over Jeff Sims.
What? From a stats perspective, Drew Mestemaker would be on your preseason Heisman watch list in his first year at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I mean, on a watch list, sure. I mean, my watch list is going to have 15 to 20 guys on it at least. And he'll put up numbers. Will he put up the same crazy numbers he put up last year? Maybe. I mean, it's still the same offense. He's got some guys that came with him from the system that he had before. And, like their top receiver last year, Wyatt Young, transferred over there. So I think didn't their running back, Caleb Hawkins, also transfer there? Didn't
Yes.
Caleb Hawkins transfer there? So, there's going to be a lot of continuity there. He threw for over 4,300 yards last year. Could I see him doing that this year? Sure. Because, yeah. So, yeah. Is he a guy that's going to win it? No, he's not going to win it. But is he on a watch list that's going to have 15 to 20 guys on it minimum? Sure. He's going to be a power 4 quarterback that's probably going to throw for about 4,000 yards and things like that. For the same reason that a guy like the kid from I'm drawing a complete blank right now, but the kid that transferred to from Ohio State to Syracuse, Kyle, what's his name? Kyle. Yes, Kyle McCord would be a guy that if he was coming back last year, let's just say hypothetically, he was returning to Syracuse last year, would he have been on my watch list? Yeah, he would have been on my watch list. because, you go out there and win the ACC and he throws for 4,700 yards again. Sure, he's going to be in the conversation. Sure. But he's not going to be a favorite. That's the thing is he on my watch list? Yes. Is he on my favorites list? No, he's not.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, if we're talking strictly stats, I mean, Drew Mestamaker would be on that watch list. Byram Brown, if we're talking just numbers of what they did this past year, would be on that list as well. I mean, some of it would look a little bit different than what the current watch list is. But yeah, if we're talking just numbers, I buy that Drew Mestamaker would be on there for me. Couple more here from Detroit Hunter. Biso hold the G5 this year is from the Pac-12, not the Mountain West. Talk G5 bid for the playoffs.
All right. Can they are they gonna see here? I gotta hold this because I don't know what the Pac-12 how it's gonna be considered this year. I don't know the answer to because like last year they would have had to get an at-large, correct? They were not considered a G5. Now that they have a certain number of teams, I don't know if they're considered a G5 or if they're still like I don't know the answer to that. So I should, but I just haven't done the research on that yet. So if let's just say for argument's sake, that they are considered a G5 team this year, so they can get the at-large G5. Let's just say for argument's sake, then absolutely I would argue that it'll come from the Pac-12, not the Mountain West, because they took all the best teams, in my opinion. They took Boise State, they took Fresno, they took San Diego State, they took and to go with Oregon State and Washington State. UNLV, and that's kind of what his next submission is. So if you sell it above, it will be UNLV. I still think that you're going to see them it be one of those teams. And I think the Pac-12 will get a little bit more love, in my opinion, Trev, than the Mountain West because the top Mountain West programs are gone. The Mountain West is now Northern Illinois, UTEP, North Dakota State. It's Air Force, Hawaii, Nevada, New Mexico, San Jose State, UNLV, UTEP, and Wyoming. I don't think that league's going to get a lot of respect this year. I don't think they'll be top 3 amongst leagues that get love this year. I think they'll be behind the American. And I think that if I had to pick today, I would pick a team from the American as opposed to the Pac-12 or Mountain West. But between those two, I'd go with the Pac-12 because you're getting the top teams from the Mountain West anyway, with the exception of UNLV, who's been very good the last couple of years, first under Barry Odom and then last year under Dan Mullen. But they're going to kind of be like Liberty this year in that they better go 12-0 if they want to get in, because that league's not going to get them any respect. Where now the Mountain West not only has Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State, they also have Oregon State and Washington State. So I think you're going to consider that league more impressive. What would be fascinating, and which I would love to happen, I would love it if North Dakota State could get in this year. I'm curious if they're eligible for it. I know that they're either just passed a rule or they set forth a rule about waiving the you have to sit out to get it to be able, because like the rule now is you got to have like a 2-year period where if you transfer to FBS, you got to sit out 2 years. You can't go to a bowl game, which I think is stupid. They're getting rid of that. I don't know how that applies to the playoff. I would love it if North Dakota State went into the Mountain West, dominated the Mountain West, went 12-13-0 and made the play. That'd be so awesome. That'd be great storyline. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to be a lot like JMU was. I don't know that they're going to go like 11-0 in like their first year, or 12-0 in their first year, because James Madison didn't go 12-0 in their first year. But like they were immediately really good. I mean, they went 8-3 and then 11-1 in their first 2 years playing Division I football, and that was in the Sun Belt, which is comparable to what the Mountain West is now for North Dakota State. But North Dakota State's been a more dominant team over the period of time. But North Dakota State wasn't – last year's North Dakota State team wasn't, from what I remember, wasn't as dominant as what we've seen in the past, if I remember correctly. So I don't know if they're, yeah. and got knocked out in the second round of the playoffs. So, we'll see. But, yeah, that'd be a cool story. But again, American and Pac-12 are where I think the two top teams are going to come from, or the top team is going to come from.
How about this one? For one game, you can only run or pass the ball, but you can't do both. You buy, sell, or holding that you would choose passing.
Nowadays, buy. Yeah. There's more things I can do to simulate passing in a modern offense than I can to simulate running out of a passing offense than vice versa. If I can only run, I'm very limited on what I can do. You're going to have 10, 11 guys near the box. I'm not allowed to pass. There's not a lot I can do. You can run the option all you want, but part of what makes the option good is we're going to hit 2 shots over your head because you're being too aggressive. So a passing team, I can run bubble screens. I can run other types of screens. I can run jet sweeps. Again, think about it. A jet, if a guy goes in motion and I flip him the ball, that's considered a pass. It's a jet sweep. It's an outside zone run. I can run shovel passes. There's a lot of different things that I can do to allow myself to still be effective passing the football and keep the defense honest in ways that I just don't think you can do running the football. Even with a triple option, whatever wishbone thing that you want to do. I just don't think in today's defenses, I don't think you can do that. That's why Navy and Army, part of the reason Navy and Army tend to get beat in those when they play teams that have the best teams, right? It's like, yeah, even the option teams are trying to throw the ball more.
Exactly. D-Troll, it depends. Am I playing on the road in 2016 in Raleigh, North Carolina? I'd probably just say I would only run the ball. Mm-hmm. But by and large, in all seriousness, I would pass the entire game. A little bit of bias in there, but there's more that you can do with it. Plus, like we've seen with Navy and Army and Air Force and other triple option teams in the past, if you get down by double digits, that's kind of the game. It's hard to make a comeback when the only thing that you're doing is running the football, unless you have big play guys like Jeremiah Love. That kind of factors into it as well. But yeah, I would choose passing. That's for sure. Getting into part 2 of the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We got the buy-sell hold going on, and Indiana Irish is getting us kicked off here in part 2. The toughest competition the Notre Dame offensive line will face all season will be in practice against the Notre Dame D-line. Good on good.
I will buy that that's a possibility, but I'm not ready to say that definitively because I think Miami still has a chance to have a really good D-line this year. A lot of that's going to depend on can Marquise Lightfoot and Justin Scott do it consistently now that they're the guy. They were good coming off the bench last year because they could play in spurts. Hey, come in, give me everything you got for 4 or 5 plays, and then you're going to sit for a little bit and recharge. You add in Damon Wilson from Missouri. That was a very underrated pickup. Like it didn't get talked as much, at least that I saw, as it should. He was really good. And he's kind of like the best case scenario for a mercenary player because that's what he is. He's a merc. He's going to go to the top bidder. Let's be honest about that. That's why he didn't go to Ohio State. If he would have picked the movie he wanted to go, like the school he wanted to go to, without NIL being a thing, he'd have gone to Ohio State. But then Georgia bought him. And then they're shocked that 2 years later, he does well, jumps into the portal now for another highest bidder, goes to Missouri, and then leaves Missouri to go to Miami, again, for more money. But what has he done in each of those instances? He's produced. So you say whatever you want about him. He's produced. He was really flashy 2 years ago at Georgia. Went to Missouri this past year, had 54 pressures. What was he, like 8-9 sacks, Trev? I'm looking up his official numbers now. I think he had like 8-9 sacks this year, then was part of a really dynamic 1-2 punch with Zion Young. He had 9.5 tackles for loss. He had 9 sacks this past season, 2 pass breakups and interception. Like, he's a really good player. And I think at Miami, being coached by Jason Taylor, I think his game is going to take another step. So Miami has a chance to be better. But if you were to ask me picking today, will they be as good? No, I don't think they'll be as good as Notre Dame. I think maybe their D-line could starting-wise be better than Notre Dame's. I don't even necessarily agree with that, but at least you can make that argument. The big separator for me is the depth. Notre Dame has significantly better depth.
Agreed on the depth piece. This one's tough. It's close. I'm going to buy it, but not with a lot of conviction. Because if we're just talking starting D-line, it's close. Because some of the questions that I have about Miami's defensive line, I also have about Notre Dame's. Can Jason Onye put it together for an entire season? Like similar questions that we have with Justin Scott. You know, they have Damon Wilson coming over. Notre Dame has Boubacar Traore. Right now, Damon Wilson has been the more productive guy. Context, Traore was injured.
Sacks-wise and pressure-wise, yeah. Boubacar was better against the run, but pass rush-wise, you are absolutely correct. Agree with you.
So it's tough. I'm buying it, but it's very close. The next one I don't think is as close, Brian, and that's the toughest competition the Notre Dame D-line will face all season will be in practice against the Notre Dame offensive line, good on good.
Bye.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a lot of great offensive lines on the schedule as of right now. And I think Notre Dame has a chance to have an elite offensive line. Real quick, Trev, my dad just texted me. He said that a real good prison movie is Brubaker with Robert Redford. Have you seen that one?
I have
not seen that one. I'm going to have to watch some prison movies this week, apparently. But yes, Brubaker with Robert Redford. Appreciate you, Dad. Dad's checking out, listening today. So have to throw that one out there.
Is The Longest Yard considered a prison movie?
Yes, both of them. Yeah. I mean, the whole movie's considered in prison. If you want to talk about movies that have a prison scene, you could maybe throw Necessary Roughness in there. But no,
sure.
I mean, and especially the first one, it's even more so a prison movie than even the second one is. But yeah, I would say that. I would say that's accurate. That's a prison movie.
Another one from Indiana Irish. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Non-Disney cartoon movie franchises. So option one, you got Despicable Me and Minions. Option two, you have How to Train Your Dragon. And then option three, you have Shrek.
Man, that's tough. The easy sell for me is How to Train Your Dragon. That was fine. I enjoyed it. The second one I didn't like as much as the first one. I haven't seen the live action one that they did, but it was fine. It was enjoyable once, and then I was good. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't something like, oh, I got to have that. Despicable Me is phenomenal, and Shrek is phenomenal. That's a tough one, man. Man, that's a tough one. Boy. I'll buy Despicable Me and Minions because I just think there were more of those that I enjoyed. Some of the Shreks at the end kind of got like they weren't as good. Like Shrek got to me progressively worse, not by a bunch, but it just the first one was the best. The second one was pretty good. The third one wasn't as good, and I don't remember how many they made. I think a lot of the Despicable Me's, they were all good, really. I mean, I enjoyed all of them. I don't know that I've seen one yet that I didn't like really enjoy. So I'll probably buy that one because I just think there was more continuity. NH agrees with me, and I know she's seen all these because she's a mom of young kids. But she said the first Shrek was awesome, by the last one not so good, and that's kind of how I see it. Like it's kind of how I felt about it. I think all the Despicable Me's. There was one that wasn't as good, but even then, it was still like I didn't love the Minions movie as much. The one with the lady and then that one wasn't, but it was still better than the last Shrek. I mean, it was still enjoyable. It just wasn't as good as the Despicable Me. So I'll go with that one. They were all I enjoyed that series quite a bit.
I am going to, because the tough part with Shrek is it's kind of like that conversation we had with Indiana Jones a couple of weeks ago about how like the first couple were spectacular and then it kind of fell off towards the end. I'm going to buy Shrek. I mean, it was DreamWorks' flagship movie, and I love the reason why it got started. Basically, one of the execs at Disney wanted to take on a bigger role, and he got denied for it, so he went and started DreamWorks, and the first movie he made was making fun of a bunch of Disney movies. I think that's hilarious and a level of pettiness that I greatly appreciate. And Shrek 1 and 2 is fantastic. So I'd buy Shrek. I'm holding Despicable Me. I like the movies. I really do. The separator for me in that is I think the Minions part, like just the character of the Minions movie, that stuff got way overplayed for my taste. Like it got they were in every commercial. Like every time you went to McDonald's for like 4 straight years, everything in a kid's meal was a Minion. Like it was just like, okay. The movie was great, but this part of it was overplayed. And so that's why I'm holding Despicable Me and Minions. Then I'm selling How to Train Your Dragon. I liked it, but it's in comparison to the three. And also, slight gripe. I appreciate when movie studios want to go back through and make like a live action version of stuff, but when the main attraction in your movie is still a cartoon, that I think that defeats the purpose of being live action.
Yeah.
So slight gripe. That's my whole thing. But I'm selling How to Train Your Dragon.
Yep, agree.
Another one from Indiana Irish. Union generals from the U.S. Civil War. Buy one, sell one, hold one. William Sherman, Ulysses Grant, and George Meade.
So the first one is easy. Like I think that well, actually, I think all of these are pretty easy. Obviously, these were all, I think, successful generals to a certain degree. But I'm going to buy Ulysses S. Grant because it's kind of like, what would you rather have, an elite head coach or an elite offensive coordinator? You know what I mean? Like I'd rather have the elite head coach. And I think the thing with Grant is he, in my opinion, right, and I'm being very broad here because we can't do an entire show. People make my entire right. I mean, I have a book on Ulysses S. Grant upstairs that's like this freaking thick, right? So I can't cover all of Ulysses S. Grant in like one thing. But he was the first like general that was in charge of the whole, Union Army that had the proper balance between knowing when to go on the attack and when to be judicious. Where a lot of the other Union generals, most of them were just kind of not good. They were just weak. And then some I thought were like a little maybe, unsound, not smart. He was the first one that combined those two and then properly knew how to use William Tecumseh Sherman to his advantage. Like, you know what I mean? Like with the campaign that he went on. So I think William Tecumseh Sherman is a lot like what Stonewall Jackson was for the Confederates, right? Like he was a great number two, and he was great in battle. But what made Ulysses S. Grant so successful for the Union at the end and what made Robert E. Lee so successful for the Confederates at the beginning until Grant came along was they could put it all together in a big picture and figure out how to win a war, not just a battle. If I just had to go win one battle, I might take, William Tecumseh Sherman or Stonewall Jackson, right? I mean, I might take them, but if I'm talking about a general to win a war, you got to go with Grant. And that's why I would say he would be my buy. William Sherman would be my hold. And then George Meade would be my sell.
Good deal.
Yeah. Good stuff.
From Dangerous Dan, buy, sell, hold. The literal strength of the tight end room this year will make last year's third down and red zone failures a distant memory.
I buy that it's a possibility. I think you can't just run. I think so. First of all, because Notre Dame, here's why I say more so in the red zone or on third down than in the red zone. Because here's the reality, Trev. Notre Dame was actually a pretty good third down offense last year.
Agreed.
They ranked 13th in the country in third down offense last year. Ironically, it seemed the further back they were, the more successful they were. Because anything that required Notre Dame to just line up and kick your butt, they weren't good at. Like for all the talk about, look at their rushing yards per game, blah, blah, blah. The what defines an offensive line is like, can you line up when it matters and get those yards? And I've had this argument. People say, well, the 17 offensive line can't do it. You're out of your mind if you don't think, you know what I mean? Like, no, that's a bad take. Last year's offensive line, inside the 5-yard line and on third and fourth and short, were not a very good football team. They are unit. And like you've got to be better there. And then when I look at this offensive line, Trev, I mean, dude, I think they've got a shot to be that. But it's also the fact that you should be stronger at tight end. They didn't feel good enough about their tight ends to put them on the field last year. Instead of they'd put receivers on the edge to try to block, thinking, well, hey, our hope. And why did they do that? Okay, you think, well, that's a dumb thing to do. Here's why they did that. They did that because they felt if we stay in 11 personnel, then we can keep them from subbing into their big personnel. Because if we go 12 or 13 personnel, then they're going to sub into their bigger personnel. And we don't think we can just line up and whoop somebody. So let's hope that we can at least keep enough athletes on the field that we can maybe crease on with our stud backs. That's honestly what the strategy was, in my opinion. Whereas now I think you're going to show minimum 12 personnel. And I think you'll see more 13 personnel because of Flanagan and Flanagan. As we talked about in day one, Trev, Tae Washington looked a lot different physically in practice one of spring than he did in the fall last year. A little bit twitchier, but you could just tell the time in the strength program has really paid off for Tae. And so I'll say this. Somebody asked me how I felt about the team after day one. And I said, I feel better about the team now than I did going into fall or spring practice, which is saying something. And the reason why is not because Tae Johnson looked great or CJ Carr looked great or Jordan Faison looked great or Du Bubakar looked great. It's because, oh, wow, Tae Washington looks a lot better. Okay, James and Cooper Flanagan, like guys that we hadn't seen a lot of last year, showed me some things. Chris Burgess, Armel Mukam showed me some things. It's things like that that kind of have me feeling like, okay, I think they're going to be better in these situations. And that's why I think the third down, if they can just be the same exact team in third medium and third long they were last year, but they get good on third and short, this is an elite offense. If they can line up inside the 5-yard line and say, we're going to run it 4 straight times and there's not a darn thing you can do about it, then this team becomes really unstoppable on offense. And I think the tight ends will have a big say in that, Trev. Big say in that.
You're not going to get a whole lot of disagreement from the tight end guy on this side of the screen, but in all seriousness,
there's a but. Oh, you might lose your title. Let me hear it. I'm waiting, Trev. You're on watch. Let me hear it. Let me hear it. Let me hear the butt.
Don't worry, brother. I got you. Hey, I got you, man. Don't worry. Don't worry. This is one of my 3 days out of your closet. So like I'm making use of this here. Look, the difference between last year's tight end unit and this year's tight end unit is crazy. Last year, I didn't have a whole lot of questions about their pass catching abilities. You had Eli Raritan, who was a primary pass catcher. We had a small sample size of what Tae Washington did against teams like Ole Miss when he was back with Arkansas. We also had a sample size of what Jack Larson can do as a pass catcher. The biggest question was, are they going to be able to run block because Cooper Flanagan's hurt? He was your most dominant run blocker. We thought about, could James Flanagan come on, which he eventually did at the end of the year. Now this year, it's almost a different question. I don't have a whole lot of questions around their abilities as a run blocker, especially now that you mentioned Tae Washington. I'm also going to throw Jack Larson into that conversation. After going through and listening to the interview that he had after the first day of practice, that light bulb also kind of went on for him too. Of like, hey, I got to be more than just a good pass catcher and a good route runner to see minutes within this offense. I have to grow as a blocker. I have to become stronger as a blocker. So the but was, last year it was no doubts as a pass catcher how they're going to be as blockers. This year I don't really have a lot of questions about their abilities in short yardage and as a run blocker. I now have questions of who's going to emerge as that primary target in the pass game. So very interesting dichotomy between the 2 years.
I'll allow it.
Thank you, sir. Then buy, sell, hold from Dangerous Dan. This is an interesting question. I saw this come in on the boards. It's the apocalypse. And you have time to download one movie/series to your device before the internet crashes for good. Because the universe has a sense of humor. Your only 3 choices all involve Jon Favreau. So, buy one, sell one, hold one. Rudy, Iron Man, or The Mandalorian?
Well, okay. That's an easy one. It would be The Mandalorian, which I never saw because I'm a smart person and an old person. So I have DVDs. I have Rudy and I have the Iron Mans all on DVD. So I already have those. So I wouldn't need to download those. I would have the DVDs. So then I would have more stuff to watch. So I don't know if The Mandalorian is good, but I would be able to watch it. I think watching movies would be like the bottom of my to-do list if we're in the middle of the apocalypse. But if I had to be in this submission of those 3, that's why I would take The Mandalorian because I already own the other 2 on DVDs.
What are DVDs? I'm just playing. I'm playing.
Well, folks, it's been really nice having Trevor Trowbridge with us. He's no longer part of the Irish breakdown staff.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had to. I'm with you. So I also have those on DVD as well. I have them on DVD. Don't worry. Do not worry. Now here's my question for you, Dangerous Dan. If I get to download
about your new salary, sorry, Trev, I just had to do that real quick.
No, that understandably so. Yeah, I appreciate that. Here's my question with Iron Man. Is it any movie that includes Jon Favreau? Because he's also in Endgame. Could I have that along with that series as well? Is it any of the Avengers movies that Jon Favreau is in? Or is it just Iron Man 1, 2, and 3? I don't know if that really affects my choice all that much because I'll probably still buy Iron Man, hold Rudy because I need some sort of Notre Dame in my life if it's the apocalypse. I'm only going to sell The Mandalorian because it's like Jon Favreau, he like wrote it and developed it, but he wasn't I don't think he was in the TV show. So it's like, nah. That's probably what it comes down to for me. But I would definitely buy Iron Man, especially if it's just anything that he's had a hand in producing or writing. Because then, I mean, you're getting all the Avengers, you're getting all that stuff. So probably be mine. From Grubbing Up Heisman, buy, sell, hold these different style 3-man backfields. So Brian, do you want to buy one, sell one, hold one here?
Yes.
Okay. So option number 1. You have Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Lendale White. Option number 2, you have Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price. And then option 3, you have Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, or Peyton Hillis.
This is actually a pretty easy one for me, and it's an order in which he provides them. So, love Riley Leonard. Love him. But Matt Leinart was a much better college quarterback than Riley Leonard, in my opinion. They won actually won 1.5 championships, right? I mean, he was also starter in 03. When they were co-champions. He was the starter in 04 when they won the championship, won the Heisman Trophy. And then in 05, he was still pretty good. And then, of course, Reggie and Lendale were phenomenal. I would say, look, like you could argue, hey, I'll take Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price over them. That's all fine and dandy. And I'll run the ball better with a team that has Riley Leonard. But to win a championship, you need to be balanced, as we found out in the championship game that Notre Dame lost. And then the other one is like, that's an easy one to sell, the Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, Peyton Hillis one, because who's my quarterback?
Yeah.
You're just going to go Wildcat all day with Darren McFadden? So, yeah, I'll pass.
Yeah, I'm going to sell that one as well. We honestly have the same order. I get why you put that backfield in there. Darren McFadden and Felix Jones were the last 2 running back duos to get drafted in the first round from the same college. Something that Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price have the option of doing, the potential of doing this upcoming year. I just went and looked on FanDuel. Jeremiah Love is still tied for like the 4th best odds to go number 1 overall. It's just fun to say. We all know that he's not going to go number 1 overall, but it's cool to say that a Notre Dame skilled player has that ability to do. But if both Jay Love and Jadarian Price go in the first round, that'd be the first time since McFadden and Jones.
Here's what I think we can say definitively, Trev, with no hesitation. He's the best offensive player in the draft. I think that we can say definitively, and I don't know that we've said that about a Notre Dame skill player in a very long time.
Yeah, and
I think you could argue we've said that about a Notre Dame offensive player. There were people that made that argument about Quentin Nelson, but not a skill player.
Agreed.
And that's a pretty cool thing. Yeah.
Agreed completely.
Yep. We did have a couple super chats that I want to get to here. And that'd be an interesting question. Like if you could have given me a quarterback from, Arkansas, that would have made that a little bit more interesting, because that Felix Jones, Darren McFadden duo was in 06 was nasty.
Yeah. If they replaced Peyton Hillis with Sam Bradford, would that change your answer?
For Sam Bradford?
Yeah.
Like from Oklahoma? No, because I still think Matt Leinart was a better quarterback. I think Sam Bradford was more productive, but I'll take Matt
fair.
Leinart. Yeah.
I was thinking of big quarterbacks around 08.
Yeah,
that was
yeah. No, I get, because that makes you think about it. Like, oh man, I'd still take that one. We did have 2 super chats, Trev, that I want to get to.
First one from UT Irish, our guy Drew Rainey. Appreciate you, man. Buy, sell, hold 1, Manti Te'o on the 2024 team, 2, CJ Carr on the 2012 team, or 3, Tyler Eifert on the 26 team. Keep up the great work, guys.
Okay, so I would sell CJ Carr in the 2012 team because I think that team was still limited in regard to I don't know that you're beating Alabama with CJ Carr quarterback. Everett Golson was pretty good that year. I don't know if CJ Carr from this past year elevates that. You still have an offensive line that's going to struggle against Bama. You still have a secondary that's not elite. So I'd sell that one. Manti on the 24 team would have been very interesting. But does he make you good enough to beat Ohio State? Maybe. But so for example, Manti, the long 70-yard run. I've heard people say, well, that was Drake Bone. But if you have to go back and watch the play, it was Jack Kaiser that run fit improperly. Manti's not playing there. Manti's not filling that hole. I don't know that Manti does a whole lot to stop Jeremiah Smith or Emeka Egbuka, guys that Notre Dame couldn't cover in that game. So I don't know that Manti necessarily would make that big of a difference. I'll tell you this, they wouldn't have lost to Northern Illinois if Manti was your middle linebacker. But I also don't – that's more so – that's not Drake Bowen's fault. He wasn't the reason they lost, but it's just Manti would have been that veteran that would have made sure that the leadership was necessary to get the troops as a whole out of their funk. You know what I mean? Like that would have been what Manti brought to the table. And that leads me to buying the 26 one because I love Eli Raritan. He's a nice player, but Tyler Eifert he was a star. He was a star. You give CJ Carr that in the first 2 games. I just think a guy like Tyler Eifert makes enough plays in one of those 2 games that they score more than their opposition.
What about for Tyler Eifert for this year, though, for 2026?
Oh,
because I get what you're saying in 25.
Same.
Okay, yeah.
Even more. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't see. I was thinking 25. 26, same. It's same theory. Like, okay, so what's the one thing we don't know about this offense in 26, Trev? Do they have a pass catcher that can be truly like that elite go-to, nobody can guard you, kind of guy?
Yeah.
No. Now you add Tyler Eifert and you've got a 6'6", 260-pound, nobody can guard you guy. Notre Dame was running back shoulders to him against D. Milner in the championship game. And I still think he got his foot down. I don't care what they say. I still think he got his foot down. But it didn't matter in the game. I'm not saying like they would have won if they, it's like, no, they would have lost 42-21 instead of 42-14. You know what I mean? But you give that, and now how do you defend Jaden Greathouse and Jordan Faison and Mylan Graham and those kind of guys with him as your number one? Well, who's your boundary receiver in 2026? It's basically Tyler Eifert. The way that they used him, they would put him there a lot. So yeah, I even more so because I think this team is going to be better than last year's team. It's even more so what I said last year. Now all those other guys can be great complementary players.
Yeah,
I'll take that one.
I'm buying Tyler Eifert on the 26 team as well. And heck, if you gave me the option to buy him for the 24 team, I might also do that as well. Give Riley Leonard in that offense a big body target to throw to. Bo Collins was a nice addition to that offense, but he didn't have the same pass catching prowess as what Tyler Eifert brought to the table in 2012. But for this submission, Drew, I'd buy Tyler Eifert on the 26 team, hold Manti on the 24 team, and then probably sell CJ Carr on the 12 team. It's probably the order I'd go.
And then we have another apocalypse question here today, Trev.
Okay. It's the apocalypse from Raymond Hartman. Appreciate you, man. You have one weapon choice, the MK19, the 240B, or the Ma Deuce.
Okay. So I don't know a lot about the Ma Deuce. That's I don't know a lot about that one. So here's what I would say. I would buy the 240 for myself to have. That's a machine gun, 7.62. I would hold on to the MK19 as I pass it over to Trevor to use. And then I would sell, some of my some of my homegrown vegetables in the garden, that we would have in our garden for a mod deuce. And I'd probably, I'm assuming if it's anything like the first two you gave me, I would sell those things so that I could buy a mod deuce, and I would put Angela on that one. So how about that? Does that work? Or Vince? Because Vince and I have we have a if stuff hits the fan plan because of, there's more weapons to people in our house than there is in his house. So,
Fair.
So that's how I would go with that one. Raymond, that's a good question.
Yeah, if we're talking like zombie apocalypse, I would do the same. I would come up with some sort of answer that allowed me to have all three.
That's right. And I would want the machine gun. That's why I went with the 240, because that's a machine gun, and I believe that the other one, Trev, I think is like a rapid fire kind of grenade launcher type of
Gotcha.
thing. So yeah, I'd want the one where I'm just spraying them, So that's how I would do it. He said it's a 50 cal. He said the other one's a 50 cal. So yeah, I'll put Angela on the 50 cal.
Yeah, that's easy. And then I would buy the MK19 for my roof. I would hold the 240B as I used it repeatedly, and then I would sell the mod deuce to Lauren so she could use that one.
Very well done, Trev. Very well done. Very well done. Yeah. All right, let's get to some more buy-so-hold submissions. Trev, by the way, my dad is really unhappy with you. He's always been a big fan of yours, but he said your Minions blasphemy has created some issues. So
it's fair. When I said it, I knew I was going to create.
You're going to have to win him over again, buddy. I'm sorry, man.
Deal.
Minions blast. You got to remember, he's a grandpa, so he's seen all that stuff multiple times. So
that's fair.
Yep. You're in trouble.
Oh.
You're in the doghouse, buddy.
Great. From Grubbing Up Heisman, buy-so-hold, IB is going to develop a top secret model that you can then use to put out takes you don't have the stones to put out your own name behind.
Sell, because if I don't have the stones to say something out loud, then I and pretty much would suck at life, and I would never go start a new account. I have thought about creating another account that I could then give some of my personal takes on issues, political issues or whatever things going on, because I try not to, use my account. Like, I don't mind sharing things, but I don't like to use it a lot for the day-to-day political stuff, just because it's like, that's not why people follow me. Like, if the occasional thing that I say bothers you, like I said something about, when Charlie Kirk passed and some guy just didn't feel the need he could follow us anymore because of that, because Vince wore a Hillsdale shirt one time. And I'm like, peace out, bro. Like, but it's just not something where I'd like to engage. But there's some pretty major topics and things in world events going on right now that I would like to engage in, but just choose not to. I don't know that I would create like a secret account. I would probably say, hey, this is me, but this is my personal opinion. This isn't my Irish Breakdown account. But I don't think that you guys would know me well enough to know that there's not a lot that I'm not willing to say. And if I'm not willing to say something that I believe about sports, it's because I don't feel knowledgeable enough to say it. If you were to say, Brian, Wayne Gretzky, buy-so-hold Wayne Gretzky is the greatest hockey player ever, I'd be like, I don't even know who would be up for the conversation. I don't follow hockey. I'm not knowledgeable enough about that topic to give you an opinion. But if I believe something, I'll say it, and I don't really care what anybody says. So, but I'm also a shut up and dribble guy, which is why we don't really talk politics a whole lot. We do have somewhat of a political question coming up, but I rarely have those things, because at the end of the day, if I start talking politics every day, then there's going to be people that don't want to listen to that, because my view, either, hey, some people may believe what I believe, but dude, I don't want to hear that from you. I'm going to talk Notre Dame football. People who don't believe what I believe are going to get all upset and in their feelings because I'm saying things they don't believe in. And then the one thing that unifies us all, which is our love of Notre Dame football, now becomes like, now there's not that. And so my thing is I don't turn on ESPN because I want to be preached at from a cultural, political standpoint. I don't care. And that includes people that believe what I believe. And so I try to live by that as best I can. So that would be the only thing that I wouldn't put out on my account, but I wouldn't create a secret burner account that I'd hide behind. I would start account, then people, I wouldn't have a problem telling people it is. I would just say this is, because I actually have another YouTube account. I haven't used it in years, but like where I would comment on those things. Hey, if you don't want to know my opinion on the war with Iran or taxes or who I vote for or whatever else, then don't follow me on that account. You know what I mean? Like, but I just don't have the time to do that right now. But you would know it was me, so it wouldn't be a top secret, something that I could put takes out that I don't have the Stones put my name on. I'd never do that. I don't know what Josh Pate has to do with that, so I'm not taking a shot at him because I have no clue what that means, but I would never do that.
Fair enough. I'm with you. And Biso Hold, alongside the legacy of elite play he's began to show on the field and will build on this season, CJ Carr's longest-lasting legacy will be off the field, showing the younger quarterbacks how a big-time quarterback leads, practices, and prepares on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think that's true because, well, to a degree, I still think so. It's the submission's a little bit challenging. So alongside that, his longest. So okay, so he's basically saying on and off the field has equal value. Is that how you're reading that, Trev?
I'm
alongside. Go ahead.
I'm taking it as the impacts off the field will be greater than what he did on the field. Okay.
In that regard, I will sell that. Because it's saying alongside this will also be impactful. That I would buy because there is a tradition. But, I think Quentin Nelson obviously was part of league being a legacy for how younger players are supposed to believe. And you'd hear Alex Bars talking about that. You'd hear Robert Hainsey talking about like, hey, this was set before me by guys like Quentin Nelson and Ronnie Stanley. And then, where did Quentin learn it from? It was from the tradition that was laid down from Zach Martin and Chris Watt. You know what I mean? But the biggest legacy he still felt what left was the on-field dominance that he showed in 17, especially. Even more so. So I still think the on-field part is more important. So if you're saying like one's better than the other, then I would go with that. If you're saying like this and this together adds to his overall legacy, that I would buy.
Yeah.
That I would buy.
Well, absolutely. You need both. You can't have elite play on the field unless you lead at an elite level, practice at an elite level, and prepare at an elite level. So in that case, they're intertwined. But being the starting quarterback at Notre Dame, you also have to drive results, and that's something that I think CJ Carr is going to be able to do. I mean, look, for as much as you and I both love Brady Quinn and Jimmy Clausen and other quarterbacks that have came through here, a lot of people on this channel talk about Ian Book. I understand it. None of them won a national championship. We still talk about Tony Rice consistently if you want to talk about legacy because he was the last starting quarterback at Notre Dame to bring home a title.
Right.
And so that's why I'm with you. I think the elite play on the field has to match.
Would we talk about Tony Rice as much as we do? Or Brady Quinn as much as we do? So with Tony, would we talk about him as much as we do if he didn't win a championship? I don't think so. If all the other things were equal, would we talk about Brady Quinn as much if the on-the-field results were what they were? We wouldn't. If Brady Quinn for 4 years was what he was his first 2 years, we talk about him the same way we do most quarterbacks. Like, oh, yeah, I remember Brady Quinn. He was a nice player. But, like, we don't talk about him very much. Why was Kevin McDougal still a guy that Notre Dame fans will talk about of my age group? Why? Because of what he did on the field. If he was the same guy that he always was, but never had the success as a team that he did we talk about him? No. So the on-field stuff matters more. And if the next, like, nobody talks about Taj Boyd laying the foundation for what Clemson became the way that they talk about Deshaun and Trevor. You know what I mean? Like, that's the reality of it.
Agreed. From Ramcray75, I know they are USC guys, but still, buy one, sell one, hold one, O.J. Simpson, Marcus Allen, Reggie Bush. To clarify, this is their collegiate career, not their total NFL career.
Oh, man. So I know what OJ did in college. I got to look up real quick. I'm not as familiar with what Marcus Allen did in college. I think Marcus won a Heisman as well, Trev. I think. But let me just look real quick. Just give me 1 second. So let me pull up what Marcus did in college. So OJ obviously was a brilliant player in college. He rushed for 14, 15, and 11 touchdowns his first year, won the Heisman the next year. He was number 2 in the Heisman. They won a championship the next year. He ran for 1,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, and won the Heisman. And then Marcus, ooh, wow. Okay, I'm gonna buy Marcus Allen. I'm gonna hold Reggie Bush, and I'm gonna sell OJ. And this is about stats. I've heard people say, I didn't watch OJ, so I can only look on stats. I've heard people say that OJ was a tremendous, like, elite all-time back. OJ was very good for his time, very, very good. Won a Heisman, was runner-up another year, but he did it for 2 years. Marcus Allen did it for 2 years, even better, and then had over 700 yards 2 previous years. So Marcus was on the 78 team that won a title. He was never the lead back on a title team. Ran for 171 as a freshman, 606 as a sophomore, 1563 and 14 touchdowns as a sophomore or junior. Then ran for 2,342 yards and 22 touchdowns as a senior at USC in 1981. Averaged 5.8 yards per carry. OJ was at 5.3 and 4.8. A little bit different era, but it's not too far. It's like 14 years. And then Marcus Allen also had 3 years of over 200 yards receiving. OJ never had more than 126. Reggie was a player. Reggie only had like the one great year as a running back, but even as a sophomore, he had over 900 yards rushing. He had 500 yards rushing as a freshman, but he also had over 1,300 career receiving yards, and he was a dynamic return man. So that's why I'm going to buy Marcus Allen just based off statistics. Because again, I don't remember Marcus at USC. I remember that he played at USC, and I'm pretty sure he won a Heisman, which he did. But I didn't watch it. So I can only compare the numbers. And if you compare the numbers, I think they all had more production than OJ over the course of their careers. They did it longer, and they all had more success beyond just running the ball, where OJ was pretty much just a runner. So that would be my explanation. Just looking at their statistical careers, not taking into account what they did, film and dominance and all that, because I can't give you an answer for that because I didn't watch the first 2 guys play in college.
Yeah, if we're talking numbers, I'm directly in line with you. But if we're talking just watching them on the field over their careers, some of it obviously is by default because I'm with you. I didn't watch OJ or Marcus Allen play, but Reggie Bush was the first player that I ever watched in football in general, not just, in my fandom or at Notre Dame, or just in football in general. Reggie Bush was the first player that I've ever seen that he could take it to the house from just wherever he was at. Now, I'm sure to some people in the older generations would say the same thing about Marcus Allen, probably the same thing about O.J. Simpson, but Reggie Bush was absolutely electric. He was nuts. From Ramcray75, if these players could have finished their career, Emmett would not have had the all-time record for rushing yards. We got Gale Sayers, Bo Jackson, and Terrell Davis.
That is a great one. I'm going to sell Bo. And the reason I'm going to sell Bo is because the reality is Bo Jackson was not a full-time football player, nor do I think Bo would have become a full-time football player anymore. I think Bo Jackson's greatest love was baseball. I don't know that if he's ever said that, but he just seemed to love football was the thing he was great at. I felt baseball is the thing he loved, and he was great at both of them, right? Bo was actually, let me go look up Bo Jackson's MLB stats real quick. But Bo made multiple All-Star games. He hit 25 homers in year 3, 22 homers in year 2, 25 in year 3, 32 and 105 in year 4. He hit 28 and 78 the next year, and then that's when he got hurt, in football. But I'm going to go there. Of the 3, I'd go Terrell Davis. And here's why I'm going to go Terrell Davis. So, number one, if you look at Gale Sayers before the injuries, he had 2,000-yard seasons, and then 1 year he would have gone for 1,000 if he didn't get hurt. And that's 1968. He went for 856, averaged 6.2 per carry, and he played 9 games. If he'd have played the 14 games they normally had, he would have gone. And that's another reason, because Gale didn't play his whole career in a 16-era football season, number one. He's a great back, but, Bo, people forget this. Bo Jackson never rushed for 1,000 yards. in his career because he never played a full season because he waited
Yeah.
until football season was over before he came and played. Now, like Trev, Bo in 1989, Bo played 11 games, and in 11 games ran for 950 yards in 11 games. You know what I mean? So, like, if he plays a full season, that's over 1,300 yards. But Bo never showed that he could be that elite every down back. Bo was an exciting, entertaining player, but he never had to be that elite back because they couldn't build the offense entirely around him because they knew they were going to have him for the whole season. And that made it, obviously difficult to do. And so that's why they had Marcus Allen for some of those years, you know what I mean, was because they still needed like that guy. And so that's why I can't go with Bo on that one. I can't. Terrell Davis, in my opinion, could have running behind Mike Shanahan's offense. I think he could have. He had over 6,000 yards in his first 4 years. I mean, he was tremendous. He was a tremendous back. He was he was 26 years old when he had the 2,000-yard season. I think that if he was a guy that he rushed for 701 yards in only 8 games in 2001 with a deteriorating knee. You know what I mean? Like Terrell, if he could have played behind in that system for 7-8 more years, about 10 more years, he could have broken that. But with all due respect, the only person that would really had a shot to break Emmett's record is Barry Sanders. Because the thing you got to give Emmitt Smith credit for, is he the all-time leading rusher? Yes. Is he the greatest running back of all time? Not even close. Not even the greatest running back of his era. But you got to give Emmitt credit. He had longevity. So his first year in the NFL was 1990. He rushed for 937 yards. After that, so he 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He had 12 straight years of over 1,000 yards. That's impressive. That includes his 32-year-old season. And then in his last 3 years, he got banged up in 2003 with the Cardinals. But he ran for 975 yards in his last year with the Cowboys, and then still ran for 937 yards in his last year with the Cardinals at 35 years old. So, like, that's pretty impressive. But Barry Sanders was just on a different level, with all due respect to Emmitt. I mean, Barry in his 30-year-old season, Trev, ran for 1,491 yards. In his 29-year-old season, ran for over 2,000 yards. Emmitt's best years were in his early 20s. If you look at Emmitt and you rank his best seasons, they were at 26, 23, 22, 24, and 25. His 5 best seasons were in his 20s. Barry's best season, like his best seasons were mixed. He had a great season at 26, great season at 23, but his 3 of his 5 best years were at 27, 28, 29 when he finally had a good team around him. You know what I mean? Like, and Barry was much more of a one-man show. He had Herman Moore, we throw him the ball, and other than Lomas Brown and I think it might have been Stepnowski they had for a little bit. No, it wasn't him, but they had a center that was pretty decent. But Barry did a lot of that on his own. Could you imagine what Barry would have done if he had Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin and all those guys and that Larry Allen and, that elite line that he had blocking for him? I think Barry would have broke the record. I mean, and Barry Sanders, Trev, had 1,500 yards rushing, and he retired at the age of 30. So let me just do some math here real quick. So Emmitt had 18,355 yards. Barry had 15,269 yards. If Barry would have played 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, if Barry would have played 5 more years, he would have only needed to average 617 yards per year to break Emmitt's record. That's it. If he just played as long as Emmitt, he would have only needed to average 618, basically 18 yards a season to break the record. That's how dominant Barry was. He stopped in his prime and still had over 15,000 yards, which is amazing. So that's the one.
Yeah, that's makes sense to me.
Yeah, Terrell was one of those ones, Trev. That one was, I remember watching him get hurt It was the year after they'd won back-to-back Super Bowls, and Matt Lepsis rolled up on him on Brian Greasy interception, freaking Michigan fans. But, like, Terrell's career was over at the age of 26, basically. He was never the same guy. Played 3 more years after that, 211 yards, 282 yards, and then 701 yards. He never played more than 8 games in a season after that.
Dang.
So, yeah. Yep. Very, very unfortunate.
Getting into part 3 of the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We got the Buy Sell Hold going on today, and getting us kicked off here in part 3 of the Buy Sell Hold, we have Father J Pop, a line of Will Black, Anthony Knapp, Ashton Craig, Gerby Lambert, and Matty Augustine from left to right would be a good sign. Showed Augustine forced his way onto the field and had Gerby slide inside where he could be dominant this year.
Well, I get where you're coming from, Father J Pop. I do. I don't know that I would say that that's a good sign, though. What that would probably tell me, okay, let me just say this. If the reason why was Sullivan Absher played his butt off, but Matty Augustine was just that good, then I would say, then what I would say is that that's a good thing. But I don't know that your best offensive line involves anyone other than Gerby Lambert playing tackle. I just think he's that good of a tackle. If you were to tell me that Matty Augustine forced himself into the lineup and he beat out Sullivan Absher and then he was playing right guard, then I would say that's a good sign. Because, and he did play some right guard in the first practice we saw. I think, and I mean, I'll just give you a little tidbit because this was in the intel piece. You're a board member, so I'll say it, but I can say it for the other people now because it's been over a week since I put it out. But I was told before fall camp or spring practice started that Matty Augustine was going to kind of swing around because they view him as like sort of that next guy in. If they thought he could beat out Sullivan Absher, I think they'd plant him right at right guard and let him play. So I would say that the best offensive line I still believe involves Sullivan Absher, but let's say Matty outplays him, then I'd say Matty at guard would make me even happier than Matty at tackle. Yeah. There's a step down athletically to Matty Augustine compared to Gerby Lambert at tackle, and that matters more to me at tackle than it does guard.
Yeah. I definitely get where you're coming from on this submission, Father J Pop, but what this lineup shows me is that Matty Augustine outperformed Gerby Lambert at tackle, but Gerby was still one of your 5 best, so they've just kicked him back inside. I don't know if that would be a good sign, but I'm with you.
Would you say because it means that Gerby didn't play well?
Right.
Agree.
Yeah.
If they're both playing their best football, Matty Augustine's not in the same league as Gerby Lambert as a tackle. Okay. And that's not a shot at Matty Augustine. I think Gerby could be an All-American this year, which we'll get to here in a little bit. So we see that the same way. I was curious where your thoughts were on that, Trev, I don't think that'd be good.
Yep, agreed.
I don't think that'd be good. So this is the one from Peruvian Irish from last week that we couldn't get to. So I wanted to make sure we got to that one today.
Absolutely. From Peruvian Irish, with the combination of the playoff committee still not stressing quality of schedule or promoting ranked versus ranked games more seemingly, conferences moving to the 9+1 model scheduling, programs looking to for every penny outside of the TV contracts and thus scheduling cupcakes out of conference home games, looking at you, USC. Buy, sell, hold each one individually. So first option up here, slightly more difficult to schedule games, especially in November, but it is not DEFCON 1 situation.
Buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah, slightly more, but not DEFCON 1 because you're going to get your ACC games in November. Notre Dame's November the last several years has been pretty much dominated by Navy and the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
Like going into the USC game, right? So this past year, you had 4 ACC games and Navy in November. The year before, you had 2 ACC games, Army, and then USC. The year before that, in 2023, in November, you played 2 ACC teams in Stanford, who's also now an ACC team. And the year before that, in 2022, you played 2 ACC teams, Navy, and then USC. And then in 2021, you had 2 ACC teams, Stanford and Navy. So even though Stanford wasn't in ACC at the time, they are now. Which means if Notre Dame really wanted to, they could go to the ACC. And I think that I would assume Stanford wouldn't have any problem with this. Say, hey, can we make the Stanford game like every year at the end of the year for now? And probably could get that done. So really all you're needing to do is find one more November game, which they'd be able to do. They would just be able to put a cupcake back then. An Army, who wasn't a cupcake in 2024 per se, but they were not on the same level as Notre Dame as that game. That was Army's best team in decades, and Notre Dame annihilated them. I mean, it's just they're still on a different level. So I would say slightly more difficult. I do buy, but I like the fact that he says it's not a DEFCON 1 situation, which I also buy. So I like that idea. It's not the doom and gloom. Oh my gosh, how are they going to put a schedule? Like they've got to come up with 4 games in November all of a sudden now.
Right.
Got to do 1 every other year.
Right. Well, and that's what I like what Peruvian Irish laid out in all of these submissions, because it's kind of each level to that kind of train of thought. So the next one, it will be more difficult, and Notre Dame needs to aggressively make deals with big brands across the board from now on.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe it'll be more difficult, and they're doing that already. I mean, you could say, well, all Alabama and the Texas games could get canceled because those teams are, and that's true. But since this shift happened, Notre Dame has signed a 12-year deal with Clemson and a home and home with Auburn. Since this all kind of went down over the last year, so they're still going to get games, and yes, there's big brands that'll still play Notre Dame. There's no doubt, because if it is about money people will be able to look and say, yeah, I know what we're trying to do, but if we get a chance to play Notre Dame every few years, we do that, because if you look at the revenue that teams make the weekends they host Notre Dame, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it.
Sure.
He's got a couple more. Let's see. Yeah, he's got 2 more.
It is a serious problem, and Notre Dame should explore scheduling deals with other conferences in addition to the ACC deal. Football deal only. For example, strike a 2-game deal with the Big 12 to play BYU every year and establish a new rivalry plus 1 rotating game through all of their other teams in November.
I would buy that. Now, do I think that Notre Dame do I think it's a serious problem? I don't think it's a serious problem. I think it's a problem. I don't think it's a serious problem. But I do think that there's a couple things you could do. Number one is you could just start scheduling more ACC teams out of your conference. There are ACC teams that would schedule Notre Dame in non-league deals. I mean, heck, ACC teams are scheduling each other in non-conference games. You know what I mean, Trev? Like, they know they're not competing in football, but if something like that happened with like the Big 12, they could do something like that with the American for a game outside of Navy. Like every year, our second, we're gonna have a game against that, and then you're still playing 10 P4s every year. You got Navy and an American team, which would be fine, but you don't have to do that. But you could do something with the Big 12, I'm sure. And again, I'm positive there'd be, of the 18 Big 10 teams, there's going to be some they're going to schedule. Because, here's the thing. Look, what some of these teams have shown is, you don't have to have a tough schedule to get in the playoffs. You got to win all your games. So if Notre Dame only has 2 good teams a year and they win all their games and the rest of their teams are crap, they're still going to get in. Exhibit A, Indiana. You know what I mean? So if Indiana would have lost to Ohio State in the Big 10 title game, they still would have got in. With their only big win of the season being what? A road win over Oregon. That was it. The rest of their wins were, So you don't always have to schedule Ohio State. You said, okay, we're going to schedule a home and home with Northwestern, a home and home with Purdue, a home and home. You know what I mean? There's still going to be teams like that want to play you. And this notion that nobody in the SEC is going to play. No, Alabama may not want to play you. Georgia may not want to play you if that's the direction they go, but Kentucky will. Vanderbilt will. Because those teams know we need a game like Notre Dame to be able to get in, because we're not going to be 12-0 or 11-1. We're going to be like that 9-3 team, and then hoping that we can pull off a non-conference upset. But more importantly, we're going to make money. We're going to make legit bank that weekend that we host Notre Dame. Yeah, we may go up to South Bend the next year and get our faces kicked in, but man, we're going to have some extra millions in our back pocket to go buy the players we need to compete in that game next year in South Bend because of the fact we hosted Notre Dame in Lexington or Nashville or whatever that week, that year before. So yes, absolutely. And look, not every team is going to be afraid to schedule games. They're not.
Agreed. We're seeing that this year. I mean, Ohio State's still not afraid to schedule out of conference games, quality out of conference games. I don't think Texas is. I don't think Oklahoma is. That's a team that nobody's really talked about. They had a home and home with Michigan the last couple of years. So
don't remember hearing anything about them trying to get out of it either. Do you?
Nope. Sure don't.
Yep.
Sure don't.
Somebody said, why would Kentucky? They already play Louisville every year. Yeah, because they're trying to make money. They're not going to the playoffs. They know that. What is Kentucky's goal? Make more money. What makes them money? Playing Notre Dame. That's the whole point. You think that Kentucky's in the playoffs if it just wasn't for that pesky non-conference game against Notre Dame? They want to make money. That's the reality of it. And if Notre Dame would play them in a home and home, I promise you that they would be willing to do that. Why? Because they want to make money. Same reason Auburn's playing Notre Dame in a home and home.
Then the fourth option from Peruvian Irish. It is the biggest hurdle Notre Dame has in the new college football world. NIL plus transfer portal plus expanded playoffs. And they need to redo the ACC deal to increase their strength of schedule. Note, no joint a conference implications. Notre Dame is independent.
So I agree that Notre Dame should do this. So I buy that part, but I don't buy that it's their biggest hurdle that they have right now. I think their biggest hurdles are still maintaining the ability to put together a top roster. That's the most important thing. If Notre Dame starts playing watered down schedules and they're running the table, then they'll 11-1, 12-0, they'll still get in. Notre Dame got in 2 years ago, losing to Northern Illinois. Their biggest win of the year was what? Let me think. What was their big win in 2024? What was their big win that's like, oh my gosh, they beat another playoff caliber team? Louisville, Navy, Army, Texas A&M, who finished as a 5-loss team. Like, what was their big win? It's Notre Dame. They win 11-1. That's what got them in. So it's a problem, but I don't know if it's the biggest hurdle. The biggest hurdle is still being able to wade through the NIL, because Notre Dame is masterfully doing NIL in the transfer portal, but it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
No. And the biggest problem that Notre Dame faces is what a lot of other blue blood national programs face, and that's retention.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're a brand like Notre Dame or Georgia or Texas or Ohio State, you're going to have no issues attracting top level talent. We've seen that from these schools. It's keeping the top level talent that you already have. That's probably the biggest hurdle for a lot of schools, not just named Notre Dame, but I agree with you. That's probably Notre Dame's biggest.
Yep.
From T Pines, buy, sell, hold. Mylan Graham will beat out Jordan Faison for a starting wide receiver spot.
Sell. Could he beat out somebody else? Jaden Greathouse, maybe? Possible, but he's not beating out Jordan Faison.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
What I could see is he outplays Jaden Greathouse, or Jaden Greathouse continues to miss time, and then they move either him or Jordan Faison inside. That I could see, but it wouldn't be outplaying Jordan Faison. Let's say they say, hey, look, Greathouse just can't stay healthy, and just hypothetically, he's, he just can't stay healthy long enough. We can't depend on him as a starter. I know that we saw Mylan Graham in the slot first day of fall camp, but if long-term they felt Graham and Faison are both starters, I think you'd see Faison, and Graham was like that dude, I think you'd see Graham outside and Faison in the slot.
Yeah.
More as opposed to what we saw the first day of spring practice. That's what I would
Agreed.
say.
Agreed completely. I mean, Jordan Faison is now the most productive wide receiver Notre Dame has in their room. Over 1,300 career receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. He stayed healthy all last year, ended as their leading receiver in receptions and yards. Mylan Graham would have to come in and put on a show to beat out Jordan Faison specifically, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility Mylan Graham makes his way into the starting lineup at some point this season. That wouldn't shock me at all. Which kind of leads into this one. Notre Dame starting wide receivers this year will be Quincy Porter, Mylan Graham, and Micah Gilbert by the end of the season.
Unless injuries, I'll sell that unless there's injuries involved, which is possible.
Agreed. Speaking of injuries, By so hold, Charles Jagasaw will be starting left tackle if 100% healthy.
Barring injury, hard sell, and even then, I don't think it would happen. Like, no, hard sell. There's first of all, you've got to remember something too. The elbow that he hurt is his left arm. You can protect that a little bit more inside than you can playing left tackle with that arm exposed all the time. Like, I don't know that makes a lot of sense. On top of the fact, he would have missed 2 years of development at left tackle. And so I just, if he starts, it'll be a guard. I think Notre Dame's very comfortable with where they are at tackle right now, or at least from a potential standpoint. If he ends up starting at some point in time this year, it'll be a guard.
Yeah, they moved Charles Jagasaw to guard when he was 100% healthy. Like they did that in the spring going into the 2025 season. So, yeah, I'm with you there.
And part of the reason why, whether we agree with it or not, part of the reason why is Joe Rudolph thought that Charles Jagasaw could be a really good left tackle, but an elite guard. That's it was about getting him in the position that they felt he could be the most dominant. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I agree with that. My issue was I still think he was a better guard than Anthony Knapp, or tackle than Anthony Knapp. And Anthony Knapp's best position is also inside. So if Anthony Knapp's best position is inside and Jagasaw is a better tackle than Anthony Knapp, it made sense to me to move Jagasaw to left tackle and move Knapp inside. That would have been my argument. But I also don't necessarily disagree with their notion that Charles is even better at guard than tackle. I think you can make that case. You know, like, and you don't even have to agree with it at the end of the day, Trev. You just have to accept the legitimacy of that conclusion.
Yeah.
There's times, Trev, you'll have an opinion on something. And when we're because Trev and I talk about a lot of stuff off the air too. I may not agree with you, but I'm not going to sit here and argue with you because I can understand the legitimacy of your reasoning. I don't agree with it. I come to a different conclusion. And I think you can understand why I came to the conclusion that I came to. You know, so like, I didn't push back on your Minions thing. I'm like, well, you know, that's commercials. That doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the movie. You know, but it's like, I get that. I mean, because I can experience, it didn't happen for me with Minions, but there's other things where it's like, I had that with Tim Tebow in his career. Like, I was so sick of them talking about Tim Tebow, and I'd be sitting there watching a MAC game on Tuesday night, and they're talking about Tim Tebow. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, what are we doing here? And so that got annoying. And then that would sometimes impact, like, I would just like to see Florida lose because I'm just sick of hearing about Tim Tebow, even though I had great respect for the human being that Tim Tebow was, you know, and he was a heck of a player. So I said, okay, yeah, I don't agree with your conclusion, but I can understand the sentiment that goes into that conclusion. You know what I mean? So like, I would say that, you know, before the second injury, I would argue that I think Charles Jagasaw could have been an outstanding left tackle. But I also understand somebody watching him in the second half at guard against Penn State and being like, dude, I think he could be a star inside a tackle. I get it.
Yeah, man. Some more from T Pines. Ethan Long will beat out Luke Talich for the 3 safety spot.
Barring injury, I saw that. It's not an absurd question. It's possible, but I think this is more about not giving enough credit to Luke Talich than it is for me not thinking Ethan Long's a good football player.
Absolutely. And like we laid out when we gave our safety preview, you're going to need both of them.
Yep.
Notre Dame has played 4 safeties the last 2 seasons. And Ethan Long, as of right now, is kind of the 4th guy in line. Joey O'Brien might have something to say about that. But, yeah, you're going to need both. But I'm with you. Barring injury, I'm selling that as well. Switch over to the offensive side of the ball. Ty Washington can make a move to be the starter.
Barring injury, I would sell that. I think he's going to play. I think there's a lot of people that think Ty is going to be relegated to the bench now that James Flanagan's a year older and Cooper Flanagan's back. I do not see that. I think he's going to play. He's going to help this football team. I don't think he'll be the starter.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like, can he? Sure. But we just don't know what capacity the tight ends are going to be used in. Is it going to be matchup based? 1 week, could we see both Flanagan starting? Maybe. 1 week, could we see Ty Washington and James Flanagan be the starter? Maybe. 1 weekend, does Jack Larson sneak into the starting lineup depending on what they want to do offensively? Maybe. But, yeah, my money's probably on both of the Flanagans, but they're all going to play. So I'm with you there. Then back to the defensive side of the ball. Biso hold. Armel Mukum finally gets into the 2 deep.
I buy that as a possibility. Yeah, I think of the things that you brought up, that's the most of the between that, the Ty Washington thing, the Ethan Long thing, the Jagasol thing, the Myron Graham starting at receiver over Faison. I think the two most likely are that Porter, Graham, and Gilbert are the starters by season's end. And I would say that's less likely than Armel Mukum being in the 2 deep. I think that is absolutely possible, especially if he continues to look as good as he did. Like his body is, he's a little bit leaner now. He's still big. He's still 296. A little bit leaner, got rid of some of the pudginess, looked really quick really quick in the drills we saw. Like he was impressive in first day of practice.
Yeah,
I'll buy that.
Absolutely.
I'm not predicting it's going to happen. I'm just saying I could see that. Absolutely could see it. Armel Mukum's got the talent to earn a starting job. Like that's how talented he is. I don't know that that's going to happen this year. I could definitely see him getting in the 2 deep. Not even needing injuries to do so. Just that's how good he is.
Yeah, absolutely. From Joe Alt Superfan, ain't no 6 like 76. With the trajectory of the program, Notre Dame will play and win multiple titles from 2027 to 2037.
Okay. I buy that it's possible, but can I just get to one first? You know what I mean? Like I'm 47 years old. I'll be 48 years old in less than 2 months. I haven't seen them win a title since I was 10. I just want to see them win one. Then we can talk about a potential dynasty. You know what I mean? But like, is it possible? It's certainly possible. Over a decade, could they win multiple titles if Marcus Freeman stays till then? Sure. Or he leaves and wins one and then he's replaced by someone as good as he is. Sure, it's possible. But I just want to see them win one first. So I'll hope by that's a possibility, but right now I just want to see him get to one in my lifetime. That's all.
Yeah, I'll be 29 in May, and I've yet to see them win a single one.
Yeah.
So before we start talking about a dynastic type of program, let's chair that talk until they get the first one.
Yes.
I'm with you. This next one, he came up with some ideas. If I'm reading this correctly in the post, it's Notre Dame Shamrock Series uniform options for their upcoming game against Wisconsin. I think he gave 3 different options.
Yes, and they go into the next one. So
cool. So buy one, sell one, hold one. A modern version of the Brady Quinn era green with green or gold pants. Option number 2 is an all navy uniform, and then option number 3 is a blackout uniform, possibly a version of the quote bend worn by the basketball team.
That's an easy sell. I have zero desire to see Notre Dame wear black uniforms. Like, first of all, like that's played out. Everyone's done that before. Number one. Number two, there's nothing black about their uniforms. Like they're navy, gold, and green. Like that's their color scheme. I think Texas Tech back in the day when they had the all blacks, I thought those were freaking sweet. Because that's part of their color scheme. If Georgia came out one game and had like all black and red helmets, that would, I think, actually be sweet for a game. Because black is a pretty prominent part of their color scheme. There are teams that could do that, and I would have no problem with it. I hate it when teams do that. The only black in their uniform is like their cleats or like the stitching around like a patch. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing black in there, so why do that? You know what I mean? And I didn't like it when the basketball team did it, but I didn't care as much because whatever, the basketball team does a lot more with their uniforms. I don't want to see anything like that with the football team. I've said that all along. I am not someone who's like, you have to wear the traditional blue, gold, and blue jerseys and gold pants, or you've got to wear the white and gold on the road. And that's because that's not what Notre Dame has always done. They have had different types of jerseys. So I like the idea of alternate jerseys. My only requirement is A, don't really mess with the helmet, and B, make it part of your color scheme. Just blue, gold, and green. So the one that I would really like for that game, so like I actually think for that game, I'm buying the modern version of the Brady Quinn era green with the green or gold pants because I think that would be somewhat of an ode to the Packers. Like because we're talking about the game in Lambeau. You're playing or against Wisconsin, which is being played in Lambeau. I think wearing a green for that game, especially because that was a bit of a darker green. It wasn't like the bright green we've seen recently, that would be a bit of an ode to the Packers. You think of like the green they wore. Remember in 2016 when they played Army in San Antonio? We've had other years they've had kind of that green. I would be okay with that. Now, if you want to ask what my favorite potential alternate that we haven't seen yet is, I would still love to see the all navy for a home game. I would. And I didn't think I would like it, but when Michigan rocked it a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, that actually looks sweet. Could you imagine what that would look like with the gold helmet? I think that'd be pretty sweet. So that would be my hold. But even though I like it better than that, the Brady, a modern, version of the Brady Quinn, I think for that game, the modern version of the Brady Quinn era gold and green and gold would be better because, again, it's an ode to it. Would be something where you could kind of be like it's an ode to the Packers. It's closer to that type of green, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm torn on this one. I'll probably buy the all navy uniforms as long as you don't mess with the helmets, because I've seen Twitter kind of take it and run with it, and they gave them like a navy blue helmet, and I was like, no, that looks terrible. I don't want that. As long as you keep the base gold helmets like you normally have, then yeah, I would be all down for the all navy uniforms. And then I would hold the modern version of the Brady Quinn era green jerseys, but with gold pants. They've already done the green on green. I don't mind it. I think it would work better with the Kelly green than it would with the like dark forest green or whatever those jerseys are, as far as the pants go. So I'd want gold pants with the Quinn era uniforms, and then I'd probably sell the black unis. Yeah.
The only time they've ever messed with the helmet, and I liked it, was in 2011 at Michigan when they just put a shamrock on it. Yeah. That actually looks sweet. That's only an every now and then thing. But I still say this, not doing the helmet right can screw up an entire uniform.
Yeah.
And the perfect example to me, I truly believe that if they would have worn gold helmets against Syracuse in 2018, Notre Dame fans would have loved, other than Red Sox and Mets fans, would have loved the pinstripe navy blue uniforms from 2018. I think the thing that made everybody not hate it, just my opinion, is looking at those uniforms without the gold helmets. I think ruined it. If you'd have kept the gold helmet and had everything else exactly the same, those were probably my favorite shamrock uniforms until, like, if you look down, if you start just cleats and work up, I'm like, oh, I'm digging this. I'm loving it. It's a shout out to the Yankees. Oh, the navy blue jerseys, it looks sweet. What is that with the helmet? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how it was. What are you doing with the helmet? Yeah. Don't mess with the helmet.
Yeah. The other helmet that I liked on top of that Michigan game that you were talking about, the 2013 Arizona State Shamrock Series game, I thought those helmets were kind of slept on. You still kept the gold. You had a shamrock on the helmet, but it was just a green outline, and the face mask was chrome green. That was sick.
Remember that. The face mask I'm okay messing with because that's changed over it. That's been a little different. So I remember the jersey strap. I'm gonna look at I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't remember the helmet as much. I'm gonna look it up real quick. So I'm not disagreeing. I just don't remember that as much. I was coaching that year, so I don't, you know what I mean? So I don't know that I even that looks pretty sweet. Yeah, that looks sweet. I can, because it's still the gold.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking at it now. It's still the gold. And it's a shamrock and a green face. Yeah, but see, again, that's the color scheme. That fits the color scheme. So, yeah, I'll dig that. I dig that. I'm looking at the pictures of that now. That actually looks kind of sweet. I remember the jerseys, and I thought those were sweet. But, I'll dig that, man. I'll really dig that.
Those are some of I think my two least favorite helmets from the Shamrock series was that 18 Syracuse, and then the 2012 ones against Miami were weird because it was weird. It was like gold and navy, but the helmets weren't split like down the middle. It was like 2/3 of the helmet was gold, and then like the side that the leprechaun was on, it made it look backwards. It was just odd all around.
Do you know the other one that I hated? I hated the 2011 helmets against Maryland. So I didn't mind the shamrock, but the way that they designed the helmet, it looked like a kickball, like the pattern of a gold kickball.
Yeah,
I hated it. I didn't mind the gold helmet. I thought that, again, I didn't mind the shamrock. Again, I think that can look sweet if you do it right. But the gold helmet thing, like the kickball looking thing from the gold helmet, that was too much for me. I couldn't mess with that.
Yeah.
I couldn't mess with that. But like the overall color scheme looked fine. The problem with those uniforms is like a lot of things. That type of gold didn't necessarily look the greatest with the helmet because they made that helmet darker than the normal gold.
Yeah,
because of that weird kickball looking, shape.
Another one from Joe Alt. Notre Dame will go undefeated, yet SMU will be the scare game that gets Notre Dame back on track.
I guess I'd have to understand what you mean by back on track. Does that mean like not overlooking teams? Because when I think of, that's 2 weeks after they play Miami. So if they're undefeated, that means they beat Miami the 2 weeks before. I don't know how back on track they would need to get.
Yeah, the SMU's their senior day, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame has had a lot of success on senior day.
And the week before it's Boston College. So I'll have to sell that one. I buy they're going to go undefeated. I don't know. And I buy that SMU could be a much more competitive game than people think. This will be the best team they've played on senior day in a while.
Yeah.
But I don't know about it getting on. So I guess I'll buy it, but I don't really understand the get back on track part.
Like I'm assuming he's talking about like they're going to be like beating people to sleep, but SMU plays them down to the wire, and that kind of wakes them up for final road game against Syracuse into the playoffs. I'm assuming that's where he's going with it.
If you're beating everybody to sleep, then you're pretty awake and you're dominating. You're playing your potential. I don't know that you need that close game to wake you up or get you. You know what I mean? Like that's.
I get what you're saying completely. I just
confusing.
Yeah. I do think Notre Dame on FanDuel is still one of the few teams that they are projecting to go undefeated. I think it's still just them and Texas Tech. So you're off to the right start there, Joe Alt. I'm with you. I'm with you completely. How about this one? The best coach Notre Dame is going to face in 2026 in the regular season is Kalani Sitake.
Yeah, I'm gonna sell that. Looking at their 2016 schedule, Trev, I'm pulling it up now. Number one is I like Kalani Sitake, but I don't think you can say he's a better coach than Mario Cristobal. And I don't think Mario Cristobal is a great coach. I think Kalani Sitake's done a tremendous job at BYU in recent seasons. There's no doubt about it. But he also has had some up and down moments. He has a 4-9 year in 2017. He went 5-7 like 3 years ago, 3 years ago, 2023. And I think he's a really good coach, but I think Mario Cristobal this year showed me something that was really the thing holding him back in the past. And Mario's had a lot of good years. And another thing too is Mario doesn't get enough credit. I still think the fact that Florida International, one of the biggest mistakes they made was getting rid of Mario Cristobal. Like that was really dumb. That was a program that was just a bad program, Trev. They were terrible. The 4 years before the 4 years before he got there, they were an FBS team for only 2 years. They went 5-6 and 0-12. He walks into that situation and leads them, by year 4 into a back-to-back bowl games, and then the next year they dropped down to 3-9 and they fired him, which I think is just I think is crazy, absolutely crazy. So, I can't. I think he was a much better coach than people give him credit for. I do. So
yeah, I'm selling that one as well. Mario Cristobal showed me what his coaching chops were in the postseason last year and against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I like Kalani Sitake. I do. I think he's closer to the Brian Newberry discussion who Notre Dame is going to face than he is to the Mario Cristobal discussion. But I would say those are the top 3 Notre Dame faces.
And I think Rhett Lashley it earns a right to be in this conversation, because what's one thing Rhett Lashley's done that Kalani Sitake has not done? He's gotten his team to a playoff game, and it was not as a conference champion. It was as an at-large bid.
That's true. So
I'll have to go with sell. I think you could. I'm not saying I think that he's better. but that's an argument to where you could make that case that even he's better than him. So yeah. Now, the best coach they're going to face for their entire career is Bill Belichick. I just don't think he's done a whole lot as a college coach, but yeah.
And then, of course, with Joe Alt Superfan, had to sneak one in here. Buy, sell, hold. If you replace Will Campbell for Joe Alt, and bam, the Patriots are your Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, I can't I can't go with you on that one, Trev. I can't go with you on that one, Joe Walt, super fan. I understand why you think that, and so I'll buy it in from the standpoint of I want to make you have a smile on your face, as the Joe Walt fan. But no, I can't go with you on that one. I mean, does he stop Kenneth Walker?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like yeah, and I kind of feel like the Seahawks I think, going back and looking at that game, I think the Seahawks kind of pulled off took their foot off the gas a little bit in the second half. Because like they knew, hey, they're not scoring on us. And so yeah. So I'll sell that.
Yeah. I'm with you. From Domer Grizz, 91% of the starters, so 20 out of the 22 on offense and defense, will be set in stone after spring practice.
Oh, I'm going to sell that in the way that I think you're asking it. I don't know. So I don't think running back is going to be set in stone. I don't think all the receiver positions are going to be set in stone. I don't think who lines up where in the secondary is going to be set in stone. And I don't think the D tackle starting lineup is going to be set in stone. From the standpoint of what I think you're asking is like, this guy's the starter, all 12 games kind of thought process. Some of those positions like D tackle, I think your starting rotation is going to be more so important than who's the first guy on the field when the game starts. That will probably be set. But even then, I think there's going to be some guys like Chris Burgess and guys like Armo Mukum that are going to be pushing to be in that rotation as well. So I think it'll be less than that. I think they'll have less than 20. So I'll sell that.
How about this one? Leonard Moore will have a better season than Charles Woodson had on defense during his Heisman year.
I mean, man, I can't go with you on that, man. Okay. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. But Trev, I mean, Charles Woodson was one of the greatest college cornerbacks of all time. I mean, he was a brilliant, brilliant player. Is Leonard Moore capable of having that kind of season? Sure. But here's the thing I'm always going to say to you. The fact that he was that dominant on defense while also playing special teams and offense even adds to how good he was on defense, in my opinion. But it's possible. But I'm going to sell that just because I just want Leonard Moore to be the best corner in college football. I don't really care that he's as good as what Deion Sanders was in the 80s or what Charles Woodson was in 1997. If it's even close, then he's going to be an absolute phenomenal, tremendous elite player. But I don't like putting that. That's like saying Jeremiah Love was as good in 2025 as Barry Sanders. Like, you know what I mean? Like, other than the fact Barry doubled him up in yards and touchdowns, sure, let's go with that. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, you're talking about one of the greatest seasons that we've ever seen. And that's just, that's asking a lot, man. That's asking a lot. I just want him to be the best corner. I just want him to be the best version of himself which is the best corner in college football. And then I'm happy. But that's a boy. I hope by the end of the year that we can ask this question and it be an honest, like it's a real, okay, honest question.
Yeah.
But that's a lot.
You and I both. Another one from Domer Grizz. If Notre Dame wins the championship this year, CJ Carr, Boubacar Traore, Bryce Young, and Leonard Moore will all go in the first round of the 2027 NFL draft.
I'm going to sell that because I don't think that them winning a championship necessarily means Bryce Young plays like a first-round draft pick.
Agreed.
I agree with the others. Is it possible that they could all go in the first round? Sure. But I've said this before. I think Bryce is a 4-year player. I think sometimes we get enamored with his physical tools and we forget that he's still a developing player. He's young for his grade. I mean, he's still developing. And I think as I've said before, I think this year could be a Boubacar-esque type of breakout for him, kind of like what we saw from Boubacar last year, 9-10 tackles for loss, 5-6 sacks. And then 27 is when he has that monster breakout that puts him into the first round. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. But I would not bet on that one. Now, I could see somebody else developing into a first-round pick. I could see an offensive lineman maybe doing that, something like that, but I don't think it'll be.
Yeah,
I don't think it'll be Bryce, even though it's possible.
I think that's what Domer was getting at in his second one. I think he meant to say if you sell that, then someone else will go in the first round, totaling 5 2027 first-round draft picks. I think that's a viable option. We talked about Tae Johnson earlier in this show. He's an option for a first-round draft pick if he has a season that we think. If Anthony Knapp moving inside looks like what we think that it could potentially, if Gerby decides to come out after his 1 year at tackle. So there's a lot of options, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would say if I buy that Bryce is a first-round pick also, then I would also say that somebody else also steps up, like we talked about.
Sure.
So, yeah, but I didn't buy that. So,
from Aiden Benami, Coach Freeman is rewriting what it is to be a head coach at Notre Dame, obviously not ignoring lose time. And it's hard to even put a price on how grateful ND Nation is that he's our head coach.
Rewriting? No, I don't think he's rewriting it. So I'll sell that. I think what he's doing is he's restoring it. Because what it means to be the head coach at Notre Dame is not, you've got to do it Lou's way. Specifically, you've got to do it Era's way. Frank Leahy, from what I've read, is a very different coach than what Knute Rockne was. Era Parsegian was a very different coach from what Frank Leahy was. Lou Holtz was a very different coach from what Era Parsegian was in a lot of different ways, scheme and how they personnel. But there was a principle that from everything you read about those legends and from their players, from people that cover the team, is there was principles involved. Discipline, doing things the right way, caring about the young men, being the most physical team on the field, all those type of things that was prominent with all those coaches, even with all the differences that they brought to the table. And I think that's what Marcus Freeman is restoring. He's not rewriting it. To me, to rewrite it means to change it. And I don't think that's what he's doing. I think he's restoring it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't take there's two things you do with an old car, right, Trev? One is you can take it and then take the parts of it and turn it into something new and different, and it's not that thing anymore. Or you can restore it and maybe take some things from other things and make it better, but it's going to look like, oh, yeah, that's what that 56, whatever, such and such look like. That's what it's supposed to look like. You know what I mean? Whereas if you take all of its parts and put it into a different car, it looks like a different car. But if you take parts from another car and put it into that car and restore it and give it a fresh paint job and all that, then it still looks like that car. Oh, that's a 69 Mustang right there. But you know what I mean? And that's what he's doing. He's taking out some bad parts and putting in new parts and putting on a new fresh coat of paint. And he's got a new engine in there and all that. And when he's done with it, it's going to look like what it looked like when Lou Holtz was the coach and Era Parsegian was the coach and Frank Leahy was the coach and Knute Rockne was the coach, in that striving for excellence, developing young men on and off the field, being disciplined, being the most physical football team, and reaching that standard. So I don't think it's rewriting, it's restoring. And I do think Notre Dame Nation should be grateful that he's their head coach.
Yeah, definitely agree with the second part of that. I get why you said rewriting, because he's having to deal with things like the transfer portal and NIL that some of the other great illustrious coaches didn't have to deal with. But with that being said, to Brian's point, the reason why he's been able to navigate it so successfully is because he's doing it with the core values that were instilled in this program, like what Lou Holtz brought to the table and guys like Era Parsegian brought to the table, because they're doing it. Marcus Freeman's doing it with the value of developing young people in mind, which is obviously something we heard Lou Holtz do. And so he's able to navigate those waters because of the things that were laid before him, because of those other guys. So I'm with you, man. It's definitely revamping it, not rewriting it.
But like, I've heard that, Trev, and I think you're right. He's dealing with things that other coaches didn't, but that's always true. For example, Lou Holtz had to deal with a limited scholarship number compared to what other coaches did. There,
Sure.
during part of Frank Leahy's tenure, if not all of it, there were no limits on the number of players you could have. So Notre Dame would just like hoard all the best players, especially all the Catholic kids. And so when Lou was coaching, there were rules and different things that made it different than what Era went through. And there were rules when Era was the coach that were different than what Frank Leahy went through, who coached in a much different era than what, Newt Rockne coached in the 20s. That's always true. It's just, what's the new thing? And to your point, Trev, it's like, yes, but there's a foundational principle of what it means to be the head coach that's never changing, because it is a unique place. And if you want to win here, there are certain principles that you need to have and embrace that are true throughout the test of time. Now, does how Marcus Freeman builds a roster look a lot different than the way that Lou did? Of course. Just like Lou was having to deal with things like teams, like cheating in college football was way worse in the 1980s than it was in the 1940s. When Frank Leahy was, 4 years in a row, like he had his was a 1943 class. No, what class was it? He had one of his classes, and Lou Samoji wrote that it was the greatest Notre Dame recruiting class ever, because he had a recruiting class that came in, and it was the 1946 class. Yes. Never lost a game. 4 years, Trev. They went 36-0-2, 2 ties. Never lost a game and won 3 national championships. It's kind of hard to beat that. You know what I mean? It's going to be like the 09 Bama class that won a title in 09 and 11 and 12 cannot come close to that, because they lost a game in all but one of those years and lost 3 games in 2010. Think about that. In 2011, they lost 1 game. That's more than the 1946 Notre Dame class lost in 4 years. You know what I mean? Like, because roster building was a lot different back then than it was when Era was doing it in the 70s and when Lou was doing it in the 80s. So it's just, there's always different dynamics, but those foundational principles that make Notre Dame unique. And somebody in the chat said it, and I think this is a great way. This is Outbound said this. He said, Freeman's success is because he embraces what Notre Dame stands for and he truly lives it. And now he's making it in his own image, so to speak, but it's still at the foundation, it's the core principles that existed through the past great coaches as well. And that's why I think he gets it. And that's why he's been successful, in my opinion.
Sure.
Let me do this next one, Trev, because I think this is going to be more of, I haven't been to Indianapolis that often, so I really can't answer this question. Biso Hold from Iden Benami. He says, Indy is hands down the best city to have a big sporting event, but more so March Madness Final Four. Biso Hold.
Yeah, bye. I mean, obviously I'm a little biased because I live here, but I think Indianapolis is a great hosting city. Sometimes a little bit too much, because living here, sometimes it gets annoying with how many events they host. Like, honestly, but
There's always something going on in Indy, dude. You are not kidding. You're not kidding.
But I get it. It's a great hosting city. You have the city feel to it, but you could stand at Circle Center at Monument Circle and drive 15 minutes in any direction, and it feels like you're in Mishawaka, Granger. So great hosting city. There's a reason why the NFL Combine is here every year. There's a reason the Big Ten Championship is here every year. But I'm with you, man. I mean, with Indiana being a basketball state, I think it's fitting to have a Final Four here. So, yeah, that's a buy for me for sure. Getting into part 4 of the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We got the Biso Hold going on today. Our guy Iden is keeping us rolling here. It says, after my IU basketball team being awesome and missing the tournament and turning down the NIT, Notre Dame will win a title in football before IU does in basketball.
Oh, I mean, that's an easy buy. Now, look, winning a championship in basketball can be done very quickly. You just one good offseason and you can put a title team together. I mean, look at what Michigan did this offseason. You know what I mean? But I just don't know that IU is the place that's going to be able to do that, especially since they're spending so much money on football right now to build that roster. And I think Notre Dame's just better positioned. I think Notre Dame's going to win a title in 2026. So even if Indiana wins next year's college basketball championship, that's going to be after I think Notre Dame wins a football championship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think Notre Dame's football team is just closer as a program. I'm with you. I think basketball you can turn around pretty quickly because the numbers that you need on a basketball team aren't close to what you need on a football team to go and win a championship. I think Notre Dame's roster is in a better spot. And I mean, IU basketball's been kind of far away for a while. They've had good teams, but Notre Dame, Purdue, and Butler have all made Elite Eight appearances since IU's last Elite Eight appearance. And they've had good teams in between then. I'm not saying that they've sucked every year. It's just it's the reality of the situation. They haven't made an Elite Eight since 2002. So I think Notre Dame does win a natty before IU does in basketball. Then another one from my den, the head coach at Notre Dame is not a top 10 coaching job. Pate said 9, and actually full on is writing the quote, he was blinded by BK and Notre Dame could have been legit the whole time move.
I listened to that segment because somebody said he mentioned me in that segment, so I wanted to see what he said. I'll just leave it at this. Notre Dame has always been a top 10 job, and they're not 9th right now. Not even close. Here's why I say that they're not 9th. Are they number 1? I don't think you can say they're the number 1 job, because if you're being objective and taking out your fandom of Notre Dame, there are recruiting disadvantages at Notre Dame that are going to be different than what you're going to have at Texas or Georgia or, places like that. But in every other way, Notre Dame is there's tradition. There's incredibly high expectations. There's a great support system on campus to help student athletes be successful on and off the field, which I think makes them better football players if done correctly. Notre Dame has no problem. They're more than willing to spend money right now to make the football team better. They're invested in winning in football. Also, one of the areas where Notre Dame was trailing for a long time was facilities. And they're no longer doing that anymore. We got a super chat from Lou Holtz, Thunder and Bolts. Thank you for the super chat very much, by the way. He goes, but haven't heard much about the new football facility. Ready for the season. What does it do for the program? Will I be getting exclusive sneak peek? I have no idea if the media will get an exclusive sneak peek on that. But what it does for the program is it's just another step towards saying our stuff matches your stuff. So you can't use that against us anymore. You can't use, this rundown facilities and all this. You can't use that against us anymore. Now it comes down to the real stuff that matters. Where are we with development and all that kind of stuff? And I don't think Notre Dame takes a backseat to anybody in that regard. Just because other teams spend more money doesn't mean that they're a better job, because just because you're spending more money doesn't mean it's smart money. And in some places where they're spending a lot of money, the coaches don't have a giant say in who they spend that money on, because they're kind of dictated to. I don't believe that's an issue at Notre Dame for the most part. So it's absolutely a top 10 job. I would argue it's a top 5 job. The reason that I would say it's probably middle to bottom of the top 5 is because they don't have the recruiting base that others do. If for some reason Chicago starts producing annually, year after year, like what they are in 27 and 28, that's out the window. Because now you can go get elite receivers, elite offensive linemen, elite defensive linemen, big time DBs out of Chicago. Now it's like, okay, now it's, you got no chance now. But that's the only reason, in my opinion. And the fact that there are, like I've never bought that you can't win at Notre Dame because of academic restrictions. I've never bought that. That's always been BS. But you have to be willing to admit that there are certain players you can't get into school that other schools can. You have to admit that.
Sure.
Which can be a bit of a hindrance. So that's why I think I would say it's a top 5 job. I wouldn't say it's number 1 for me, but I do think some of the things that the academic piece, the fact, like Kirby Smart would not like coaching at Notre Dame. He would hate it. Would not be a top job for Kirby Smart. Why? I mean, you mean I got to actually discipline young people, and there's actually standards for how they conduct themselves off the field, and I just can't get anybody with a pulse into my school, and we're not going to just forget. I mean, could you imagine if Notre Dame had 20-some kids arrested over the last 2.5 years? Marcus Freeman would be out of a job at Notre Dame if that was going on. And it's an embarrassment. So yeah, it's easier to run a program in a renegade fashion as long as you win at a place like Georgia. That makes it a better job for a lot of coaches. But that's why I say Notre Dame is not a school anyone that's a good football coach can win at. It takes a special kind of coach to win at a place like Notre Dame. Some can do it everywhere. I mean, Lou Holtz won in the Southwest Conference, which was the dirtiest conference ever. When he was at Arkansas, he also won at a place like Notre Dame, which is not going to be doing those things. So the great ones can win anywhere, like the truly great ones. Others that are really, really good, like a Kirby Smart, can't win everywhere because their brand of success requires being at a place like a Georgia. Where I think if Nick Saban would have taken the job at Notre Dame instead of going back to Bama, he'd have won a championship. I think if Urban Meyer would have taken the Notre Dame job instead of the Florida job, he'd have won a championship at Notre Dame because they're the best of the best. They can win in all types of different. He won at Utah. He won at Bowling Green. He won at Florida. He won at Ohio State. And they're all very different jobs. And that's why I don't think Kirby's ever going to be on that level with those guys because he is uniquely built for Georgia and programs like a Georgia. But yes, I think Notre Dame's a top 5 job. I certainly believe it's top 10 job. So I'm going to sell this.
Yep. Selling it as well. I'm with you. Fit matters as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
And I think it's a top 10 job for everyone, in my opinion. Like, it's definitely a top 10 job.
100%.
Meaning, like, if you're in the top 3, you'd say, I'm not going to consider leaving Notre Dame for job number 9 or 10. Or I'm not going to consider leaving Bama or Texas for job number 9 or 10, but I'd at least think about it. Like, Bob Stoops, in my opinion, has a top 10 job when he was at Oklahoma. He thought it was very hard for him to not leave Oklahoma for Notre Dame. And that's when Notre Dame wasn't even what it is now. That's when they weren't supporting the football team the way that they are now and with the facilities and stuff weren't. And it was hard for him then. So, yeah, it's definitely a top 10 job.
Another one from Iden. Without hope buying, it's slim Cam Williams will actually see quality, meaningful snaps this upcoming season, therefore ever at Notre Dame.
I'm going to sell that.
As am I.
Because
I see
meaningful minutes, real quick, meaningful minutes does not mean he has to be the go-to receiver. This means he's got to be in the 5 to 6 man rotation. KK Smith had meaningful snaps last year. Micah Gilbert had meaningful snaps last year. Is Cam Williams have a shot to be that? Absolutely, he's got a shot to be that without hope buying it. Hope buying is Cam Williams is going to be their best receiver this year. That's a hope buy. The odds of that are slim this year. But Cam Williams playing a meaningful down, I'm selling that.
Yeah, I am too. ICURN with Irish Luck. Buy one, sell one, hold one. The most physically gifted wide receiver. Quincy Porter, Cam Williams, Mylan Graham.
I'm going to buy Cam Williams, hold Quincy Porter, sell Mylan Graham, but it's very close with all of them. The only advantage I give Quincy Porter over Mylan Graham is size.
Yeah.
He's really big. If you were to say it, Trev, so like if you were to say Mylan's number 1 or number 2, or there's no wrong order here when it comes to physical gifts. They're all 3 extremely physically gifted. I personally think Cam is the best. I know I'm not alone in that thinking. I know at least one person at Notre Dame that feels that way, but I guarantee you that if you polled everybody else, there's somebody would pick Mylan, somebody would pick Quincy, somebody would also pick Jordan Faison. You know, with his athletic skills. So it's not an easy one, but for me, I will buy Cam, hold Quincy, sell Mylan.
Yeah, I'm definitely buying Cam Williams, and then it's honestly a flip of a coin for me between Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter. I like Quincy Porter's size. I like what Mylan Graham can do after the catch, that ability too. So it's a flip of a coin. So I'm definitely buying Cam Williams, though. That's how I see this one. Another one from ICURN. After the 2026 class, teams in the South are terrified of the monster that is Notre Dame recruiting.
Buy.
Yeah, absolute buy. Because they just did what people told them that they couldn't do. It's plain and simple.
And afraid of what that means for them if it happens.
Yeah.
Because like I won't say who it was, but there was a kid that visited this weekend that was considered a very heavy lean to an SEC school, and just one trip to Notre Dame completely changed that. Like,
yep,
okay, it's a different animal, and that terrifies them.
The buy sell hold. Charlie Partridge will be for the defensive line what Harry Heason was for the offensive line.
If he stays long enough, I'll buy that, actually. Yeah, I'll buy that. I'm not saying he's going to leave. He doesn't have really a history of being like a vagabond coach. Like there's just some of those coaches, Trev, that just like they can't stay still. Like they need that new challenge. They move around a lot. I mean, he's coached a lot of places, but most of his short stints were when he was young, when we all do. So like my first 5 years of coaching, I coached 4 different schools because you're working your way up. You know what I mean? Like, so like I went from, like a sort of a student assistant coach my first year, coaching tight ends. And then I would work with the young quarterbacks. So we had like 10 quarterbacks. And then my second year, I was a full-time coach at a D3 school, coaching running backs. And then, from there I got a full-time, like full-time meaning like I was responsible. I was a full-time, that receiver coach was my job. And then I went back to the D3 level, but that was because I got hired. I went from just the receivers coach and kind of pass game coordinator, although it wasn't a title, to pass game coordinator, assistant head coach, recruiting coordinator, so like it was an up and also an up a pay increase. So like you do that early in your career, and then you get older and you have a family and you start to say, hey, I'm somewhere where I really like and I'll stay. And I think, once Charlie Partridge kind of established himself, he didn't move around as much. There was just kind of one stretch where he did that. And that was because he followed a head coach that he worked with to Arkansas. So like he got hired at Pitt in 2003 and stayed there till 2007. And then he got hired at Arkansas in 2008, stayed there till 2012. And the only reason he left, or Wisconsin, the only reason he left Wisconsin in 2012 was because he followed Bielema to Arkansas, and I don't know that he would have remained at Arkansas. The new coach probably would have kept him. Then he got a head coaching job at Florida Atlantic, and he was there for 3 years. And then he went to Pitt, and he was at Pitt from 17 to 2023 before he got, a job at the Colts. So, I mean, he stays 4 or 5 years everywhere he's been for the most part. If he does that, which is, I mean, Harry Hiestand was at Notre Dame 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 6 years. I mean, you know what I mean? So if he stays at Notre Dame at the same stretch he's been at his last, couple places where he served stints where his stint didn't end because somebody left or got fired or whatever, then yeah, I think he could have that kind of impact. From a coaching and development standpoint, like right now, Notre Dame's doing a pretty good job of recruiting the defensive line, and they haven't had a first-round draft pick since the 90s at the end. And in the last, since you've been born, Trev, I think they've only had one D tackle drafted in the first round, I think. And that would be Jerry Tillery. I could be wrong, but I think that's accurate. Now, obviously, Bryant Young was a first-round draft pick in 1994, but I don't know that Notre Dame has had a D tackle drafted in the first round. I'm actually going to look at that. So Riley was a 5th-round pick. Tillery was a first-round pick, as I said. Rochelle was 7. Sheldon Day was 4. Lewis Nix was 3. Trevor Laws was 2. Derek Landry was 5. Paul Grassmanis was 4. And then Bryant Young was the number 7 overall pick. So, yeah, since 1994, there's been one guy drafted at defensive end in the first round. That was Jerry Tillery, or defensive tackle. And then at defensive end, I think it was Ronaldo Wynn. I think in 1998 or 9, I believe. Let's see, where's Ronaldo Wynn? Yeah, he was the number 21 overall draft pick in the 1997 NFL draft. Since then, you had Anthony Weaver in the 2nd round. You had Justin Tuck in the 3rd round. You had Victor Abiamiri in the 2nd round. You had Cap in the 6th round. You had Stephon Tuitt in round 2. Khalid was round 5. Julian was round 3. Dalen Hayes was round 5. Adetokunbo Ogundeji was round 5. Foskey was round 2. Javonte Jean-Baptiste was round 7. If Notre Dame starts putting out guys relatively regularly in the first round, imagine how they're going to start recruiting that position. It'll be like everybody talks about, it's easy to recruit offensive linemen in Notre Dame. Well, yeah, once Harry started doing what he did, but it wasn't that easy before him. There were stretches in the past where it might have been easy, but it's not like they were O-line U before Harry showed up. So you do that, and all of a sudden, yeah, you're doing that for what people did. You start putting Boubacar's a first-round pick. Bryce is a first-round pick. Keon gets drafted. Rodney Dunham eventually becomes a first-round pick. Ebenezer's a day 1 or day 2 pick. Francis Brew's a day 2 pick. Teon Grace. You start putting guys into days 1 and 2 like annually, and all of a sudden recruits are going to flock. Because what's the one thing holding big-time recruits back from going to Notre Dame at certain positions. Well, I don't know that I'm going to get a great education. I believe that. But I'm someone that values education, so I know I can also get a great education at Miami or at Texas A&M, or Michigan or Ohio State. Very good schools, in certain areas, depending on what you want to study. But I also want to be a first-round NFL draft pick coach, and you guys haven't put him in a first-round NFL draft in a decade. You know what I mean? Or in my position, if I'm a defensive end, since way before I was born. I mean, the last time that happened was the year Trevor was born. You know what I mean? So you change that, and now all of a sudden it's a whole lot easier to get some of these five-star studs and big-time players that are looking at Notre Dame that they're already kind of getting. I mean, we talked about this. So, like Ohio State, it's easy to recruit a receiver at Ohio State. Yeah, it is now. It wasn't always that way. Why did it change? They started putting guys into the NFL draft. And it didn't start with the first rounder. It started when, you had Michael Thomas in the second round, Paris Campbell in the second round, Terry McLaurin, it started there and then built up to where now they're just pumping out first rounder after first rounder. That pipeline's got to start with somebody. And I think Charlie Partridge has an opportunity to do that for the D-line. I do.
I buy that it's a definite possibility. He has the pieces in place, but Harry Heath-Sand just kind of set the standard of what it was to be an offensive line coach or a trenches coach at Notre Dame. Charlie Partridge could be that. There's still some things that I need to see. Current roster, he has the tools in place. Love the freshman roster that they have coming in, but he didn't recruit any of those guys. So I need to make sure that he is able to follow that up, because you can develop that high-level talent in. You also have to backfill it once it leaves. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a big piece that I want to see. That's what Harry Heath-Sand did just such a tremendous job of doing. So I'm optimistic that it could be him. But it's going to take a while for me to definitively say, yes, bye, because of the pieces. Because Harry set that goal.
Harry inherited Zach Martin and Chris Watt and Braxton Cave and guys like that, right? And then he went out eventually and recruited he inherited Ronnie Stanley, because Ronnie Stanley was primarily recruited by Ed Warner.
Yeah.
And then Harry came in before signing day and all that kind of stuff. But then he went out and recruited Mike McGlinchey and Quentin Nelson and guys like Steve. No, actually, Steve Elmer committed before Harry got hired also, even though Steve was in the 13 class. Steve had been committed for 2 years, but then he recruited those guys and went out and got that next level. To your point, you got to build up the guys that you inherited and then go recruit, like you said, Trev. It's a great point. That next level, that next group of studs.
Another one from ICU. Buy, sell, hold. Jerome Bettis Jr. is the tallest and biggest wide receiver not named Quincy Porter.
I'm going to sell that. I think that Cam Williams is bigger than he is. I also think Micah Gilbert's bigger than he is. Somebody said he looked taller in a photo. He didn't look taller to me, but it was photos can be misleading because one guy's front or back or the angle of the camera, but he's maybe as tall.
And then
it's if he is taller, it's it's not that. And he is cut, but he's not as thick as Cam and Micah.
I was just about to say he's also not as thick as Jaden Greathouse is. I mean, Jaden Greathouse is 215. I mean, he's not as tall as Jerome Bettis. They're an inch apart. Now, mind you, the heights and weight, especially the heights, have kind of been subject to change on Notre Dame's roster over the last couple weeks.
Guys keep shrinking and growing.
Yeah. So take that with a grain of salt. But he's definitely probably one of the most cut. I'd definitely say that.
He's leaner than some of those other guys, too. Yeah, I didn't know that CJ Carr shrunk an inch this offseason. Did you see that?
Yep. So did Blake Hebert. Blake Hebert went from 6'3" to 6'2".
So dumb.
And then Bettis has more potential or would have an easier path to playing time at safety than wide receiver.
So, I mean, he'd have fewer guys in front of him, but with all due respect, he would have no chance of passing those guys. He's not. His one issue at receiver that I see right now is lack of explosiveness in high-level athleticism. Love his route running. He was smooth. He catches the ball extremely. I mean, his ball skills. I mean, we always knew he had his ball skills in the practice were outstanding. But why was every catch he made contested? Because he wasn't getting separation. But that's still the issue. I think that would be a problem for him at safety.
Agreed.
So I'll sell that. It's an interesting proposition, though, because he was a pretty good high school. I would argue that he was a better high school safety than he was a high school receiver. But I think his projection for the next level is still better receiver.
Yeah. From Red Salmon's Ghost, buy, sell, hold, Anias Williams will have a combined 1,175 or more total yards from scrimmage this year.
If healthy, I buy that. Yeah.
Yep, agreed. From Z-Man 381, the 2027 recruiting class will end up being another nationally underrated but essential to another Notre Dame national championship, making it most similar to the 2024 class.
The 27 recruiting class will end up being an underrated but essential to another Indy championship, making it. I'm going to sell that. And here's why I'm going to sell that. I agree with your last part. I don't know that I agree with your first part because of the guys that I think they're getting. Like, let me just go look at the most recent On3 rankings, just because I haven't looked at their 27 rankings in a while. They just came out with their 2028 rankings, and it was some of the dumbest stuff I've ever seen in my life. I'm sorry, I got to say this. They had Cam McGee outside the top 50. They had Neiman Lawrence outside the top 50. They had Jackson Vaughn outside the top 100. They had him as a 3-star. They had Phoenix Evans barely inside the top 300 and a 3-star. It was some trash rankings, but it is what it is. But that matters when you're talking about recruiting rankings. But here's where let me just count. I'm going to go through their top 100. Let's see, these are the number of top 100 guys I think Notre Dame is going to get. So in their rankings, not mine, their rankings. So that's 1, 2, 3. Actually, that's the industry. Let me look at the rivals, their own ranking, because it's a little bit different. So let me start over real quick. So there's one guy in the top 10, 2 in the top 15. Let's see here. 3, that's 3 top 25 guys right now that I think they're going to get. They've got a good shot with another top 30 guy. They've got a commit that's number 33 in Xavier Hassan. It's another top. So, like, right now, the way their rankings are right now, I think they get 4 of the top 38 players in the country. Then some more top 100 guys in there. Let's see here. There's one. There's another top 70. Ace Austin's number 72 overall. He's a Notre Dame commit right now. So that's 9. That's 10. Let's see here. So right now, I project them to get 10 players that are ranked as top 100 recruits. Right, that's 10% of the top 100. I think goes to one team, Notre Dame, based on the current rankings. And then there's a bunch of guys like right outside the rankings and things like that. There's another at 115 that I think they get. So yeah, there's another one. James Halter's 127. So yeah, I think it's going to be another top 3 to 4 ranked class in On3. So I don't think it'll be underrated, but I agree with your second part that it'll, be essential to another championship. So I don't think it'll be similar to 24 in that it'll be underrated. I think it'll be similar to 24 in that it is a foundational piece to a championship, which the 24 one absolutely is, Trev. I mean, the 2024 class is absolutely essential to Notre Dame winning a championship. I mean, that class has Gerby Lambert, Kingston Viliamaasa, Cam Williams, Bryce Young, CJ Carr, Kedron Young, Anias Williams, Logan Thomas, Tae Johnson, Micah Gilbert, Anthony Knapp, Leonard Moore. I'm just going down their rankings. There's a lot of and then there's a lot of guys that are going to be depth. Cole Mullins is going to have a shot to play for them this year. You know what I mean? Jack Larson's, competing for playing time. Styles Prescott's in the 2 deep, so there's plenty of other guys that have a shot to help them. So it absolutely be similar to that. But I think this class is going to end up being a top 5 class. Now, so could it be underrated where it's like it's 4th and I think it should be 2 or 1? Yeah, but I don't count that as the same as like the 24 class was ranked like 10th or 11th. And I thought it should have been a top 3 class. You know what I mean? And I think it's been proven to kind of be that. Actually, what were they ranked in 2024? Give me a second, Trev.
I thought they were 9th on 247.
They were 11th on the industry rankings on 3, but I think you're right. I think they were 9th on the On3's own individual rankings. In that, yes, they were 9th on their own individual rankings. They were 11th in the industry ranking. And I think they should have been top 5, easily top 5. That's a big difference. 9 or 11 to top 3 to 4. That's a big difference. You're 4, you should be 2 or 1. That's not a big difference. Yeah.
How about for the 28 class, Brian? The 2028 recruited class will be a number 1 ranked class, making it most similar to the 26 class.
Not with the garbage bullcrap rankings I just saw from On3 just now. You know, like if you watch Jackson Vaughn play and you don't think he's a top 100 player, much less a top 200 player and a 3-star, then you are in the wrong profession. He was a top 25 player coming into the weekend, and they dropped him down to outside the top 200. Look, I don't know that it's a Notre Dame bias. I've never seen that from On3 before. However, they have hired a bunch of new guys that are part of the team over the last several months that maybe that's changing it. I don't know. But I don't know how you take Cam McGee from a top 10 player to outside the top 50. I don't know. Maybe instead of 4 tackles for loss and 2 sacks in the state championship game, he should have had 7 and 4. I don't know. I don't know what camp you saw a defensive end at recently that made you drop him almost 40 spots, and there were over 40 spots in the rankings. But whatever it is, you should check yourself because you're terrible. You dropped Jackson Vaughn almost 200 spots based on what? He was too dominant in one of the best football leagues in America? You know what I mean? Like, clown stuff, man. Like, absolute joke. But the 2028 class will be special for Notre Dame, in my opinion. Yes.
Another one from Z-Man. The most important assistant coach in 2026 is Joe Rudolph. Over the next 3 years, however, for coaching and recruiting, it will be Charlie Partridge.
I'm going to buy the first. I'm going to sell the second one because a great D-line coach can be negated by a defensive coordinator much more so than an offensive line coach can be negated by an offensive coordinator, or at least who I think the offensive coordinator will be. And I'm more confident that Mike Denbrock, if Joe Rudolph does a great job, I'm confident that Mike Denbrock will get a lot out of him more so than Charlie Partridge with Chris Ash, simply because of the uncertainty of Chris Ash, because he has less proven experience as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Ash has put one good defense on the field over the last decade. Now, why? Because for a lot of those years, he either wasn't coaching in college or he was a head coach. So it's an unfair thing to compare. I'm not even taking a shot at him, but I'm like, from 2020 to 2025, he was only he was only a college coach for 2 years. You know what I mean? Whereas Mike Denbrock during that stretch was putting out, number 1 ranked offenses. So it's not even a shot at Chris Ash. It's more of a, I need this. I don't think any of us truly knows exactly what Chris Ash wants to do defensively at Notre Dame, because we saw so much differentiation from the beginning of year 1 to the end of year 1. Was that just, kind of like the article you wrote today, Trev? Was it yesterday? Did you write that, or was that today? Was that yesterday?
That came out on Sunday. Yes, sir.
Sunday. So that was yesterday. But the point, the point of your article, and I thought it was very well said, and it was some things that he had said, was he didn't know what he didn't know a year ago with this team. Even early in fall camp, it's like, I'm still learning what these guys can do. Maybe the struggles early on were simply that. And then once he got a sense of what his players were, then he adjusted his philosophy on his own. I don't think that's true based on the sources that I have. What I was told is that they had a come to Jesus conversation in the defensive coaching staff room with Marcus Freeman. So I don't think it was Chris Ash was like, well, I know the players now, so let's go do this. But did that come to Jesus moment? Did that relate in as to have a fun theological conversation in his eternal security as the defensive coordinator, at Notre Dame? Or does he, apostatize himself and go back to being a read and react coach? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm being a little silly there, but that's the unknown. And without that, I can't really tell you, because like Charlie Partridge could be a great D-line coach, but if he's being asked by the D coordinator to, two gap all day, then I don't think the D-line is going to have the impact that the Joe Rudolph will have with an offensive coordinator who we've seen what he can do with just a solid offensive line, much less a great one. You know what I mean? So that's why I would sell that right now, the last part. I definitely buy the first part, though. Here's what I will say to wrap it all up. If Chris Ash does what I hope he does as defensive coordinator, and his replacement does the same, then I would buy that second one. Because D-line is to the defense what the O-line is to the offense. You know what I mean? And when I say his replacement, I feel like if Chris Ash builds an elite defense at Notre Dame, somebody's going to hire him as a head coach, or an NFL team is going to hire him as their defensive coordinator soon. You know what I mean? And so then if the new D coordinator looks at Charlie Partridge's defensive line and says, we need to keep this going, then yeah, I think he can have that kind of impact and would be that level of importance.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for a lot of the stuff that we've talked about already during the offseason, Joe Rudolph is the most important assistant coach in 26.
Mm-hmm.
This team will go as far as what Joe Rudolph's coaching and development does for this offensive line. And there's already a big check box if the lineup that we saw on the first day of spring practice remains consistent over the course of the offseason and they stay healthy. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Buy, sell, hold from Irish Okie. Buy, sell, hold each of these. This is the tax question.
I'm going to try to answer this as much as I can without turning this to political debate. So we'll work through this pretty quickly. I thought about not answering it, but I think he asked it in a way where I can, because I have made my opinion known on taxes lately on shows, so I have to own that, and so I'll answer this question. But we'll answer it as concisely as we can, Trev, in an attempt to not start an argument. So let's go through them. There's 7 of them.
All righty, let's knock out the first one. How about property tax?
I am a sell that and by sell it, I mean to me there should not be property taxes. Essentially, if I own my home, then I should own my home. And if me not paying you a property tax as the government means you can take my home, then I don't own my home. You own my home. You're basically like my landlord. And if I stop paying you, then you can kick me out of my home. Correct? Isn't that how property taxes work? If I just decided not to pay my property taxes, are they going to let me keep my house? Not in Indiana. So I'm selling that.
How about income tax?
Also sell. I'm not a believer in income tax. I think the income tax was created at a time when the government needed to create revenue to deal with a specific problem. But of course, once the government does that, they never actually give that back when the crisis is over. So it should not be. I'm not a believer in income tax.
Let's ride with some capital gains tax.
In theory, I don't necessarily have a problem with capital gains taxes. My concern is that and Trevor and I were talking about this before, some forms of a capital gains tax is a double tax. And I don't like double taxes. There are some instances, and Trev, you were pointing out that if you, what was it? You said if you get like some sort of, was it a Roth IRA? I forget which one.
It's depending on the type of IRA. Yeah. So a traditional IRA it's pre-taxed income. Right. Roths are post-tax.
So it's not, you're taking that out of what's taxed at the end of the year. You make money off of that. Sure. Some of that can be taxed. I'm okay. You start double dipping and I'm not a big fan of it. And that's the same thing with the inheritance and the estate tax, Trev, which is the next one. I'm selling that because it's a double tax. You already taxed that estate and that inheritance. You've already taxed all the money that was made by that family. Now, when that person dies, that money's getting taxed again before it gets to the family. I'm not a big fan of that. So I'm selling that.
How about sales tax?
In theory, I am not upset about a sales tax. I don't like a sales tax when it is included with all the other taxes that we have. Because now it's a double, triple tax. Like, to me, a sales tax in its proper form is essentially a flat tax, where it's like you just pay this for the cost of goods and services, and that's it. You know what I mean? Your income isn't being taxed. This isn't being taxed. It's a double, triple, quadruple tax by the way it is now. In theory, so that's the thing is, I can dislike the application of something, but not have an issue with I could like it, football related, right? We're a football show. I love Inside Zone. I don't always love the way some people teach and or call Inside Zone. You know what I mean? So like something in theory could be good, but the application of it is not. And that's when I have a problem. And that's how I feel about the sales tax. It's also how I feel about the fuel tax. I'll sell that one as well. The one that I would buy, Trev, and I'm curious what your thoughts on this is. I do not have an issue with toll roads. And the taxes that I don't have an issue with. Now, with anything, it's what's the volume of the tax? What's the number of the tax? Things that relate to a specific public service that is provided by the local, state, and or federal government, then they have to have a way to pay for those things. My property tax should not be the way you're paying for roads. Paying a toll tax or something along those lines is something that you want access to public facilities, then there should be ways for them to say, you want access to this, then we can accumulate that. Now, there's a lot of different ways they could do that without having a toll. Like, so when I lived in Virginia Beach, we were living at a campground my sophomore year. So we had to drive from the beach all the way up to 264 to get to go to Kempsville in Virginia Beach. And back then they still had it's like a 4-6 lane highway, all tolls both ways. And every morning on their way to school, backed up forever to get through the toll road. It's a lot easier now because they've got the things that can scan. Yeah, you want to drive on a federally provided for road, then sure. But what I don't like now is you're already supposedly taking my property tax to pay for that. This tax supposedly goes towards that. And now I've got to get tolled on it as well. It's a triple tax. But in theory, if you don't have all the other taxes and you're going to basically put a tax on something to that allows me to use something that I need, how else are they supposed to pay for the workers to do that, the contract to build it, the upkeep and all that, as long as the money's going towards that and not a bloated salary for a bureaucrat, then sure, it's a public service. There needs to be a way that the government can pay for and have the upkeep on something that they're responsible for. So that's why I would support something along those lines.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The only ones that I really have any sort of opinions on, because I'll just be honest, like we talked about earlier in the show, there are some taxes that I just don't have that much knowledge and to have that deep of an opinion on. There are other things like surface level. Like I know property taxes also pay like over 40% of like K through 12 teachers' salaries in like public schools. And like my mom's a teacher, so it's like I just don't know how they would be paid.
They say that, but it all goes into, but that's the whole thing, Trev. They say that.
Sure.
But there's other ways they can get that to where, so if I don't have a kid I don't have a kid. So why is my property tax going to pay for a teacher? And then if I don't pay it, you can take my home.
Sure.
So yes, there needs to be a way to generate revenue to make sure we're taking care of our teachers and all that. But why can you take my home if I don't pay for something that I don't use because I don't have a kid at that school? I don't have a kid, period. And that's, you know what I mean? So like they tug at your heartstrings. Like, well, this is how we pay teachers. Like, well, okay, but there's other ways you could do that without putting a lien on my home because I don't pay you for a house that I supposedly own.
Sure. That's why I'm saying it's like my knowledge of this is not that in depth. I know that I guess on paper, property taxes are supposed to go to teachers.
I wasn't either until I bought my house.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
You'll get there. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on that. But look, the government has a function and they can't do things for free.
Sure.
Right. Like the police costs money. The upkeep on the roads costs money. Providing for a military that can defend us and defend freedom around the world is not cheap. So there needs to be a way of generating revenue. I'm not someone who believes all tax is theft. I don't believe that at all. It just, everything doesn't need to be taxed the way that it is. And that's more of my issue for it. I'm not one of those like all tax is theft people. A tax is part of the social agreement. We give you this, we agree to give you this, and you agree to do this for us. The problem is that the governments from the local level to the federal level have broken that contract with the manner in which they spend the money irresponsibly. And I'm not talking about on wars and things like that. I'm talking about on why is that guy making that much money? You know what I mean? Like, why is this person like, how do all these Congress people go to Congress and they're like, they've got $50,000 to their name or $100,000 to their name. And in 4 years, they're millionaires. You know what I mean? Like, that's the problem. It's how they spend the money, not that, like, how else are they supposed to pay for certain things, right? So, like, I'm not an all taxes theft person. Like, we fought a war over taxes, but it wasn't every single tax that we had an issue with. It was like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Like, it was, you're doing this tax without us having a say in it, was the fight.
Sure.
More so than that. So I think there's a lot of things, like up until the early 20th century, most of our revenue as a country was generated through tariffs. Yeah. Now you use the word tariff and it's like, that's a bad word. You know what I mean? Like, well, that's how we funded our country for a lot longer We have now the income tax didn't come along until the 1900s. Well, we existed in the 17 and 1800s. Imagine that. So that's kind of where I'm at. So, and by the way, when I talk about people abusing things, notice I didn't say the other side that I believe does that. Notice I didn't say, how come all these Democrats are coming to office and becoming millionaires? Because it ain't just them. You want to get into my radical political theory, I don't think there's a whole lot that separates them when you get down really to it at the federal level. I don't. I think a vast majority of federal politicians are corrupt. Well, they got an R and a D by their name. So I didn't say this side, that side is this way. They're all corrupt. The difference is this is what the Democrats want to tax, and this is what the Republicans want to tax. You know what I mean? It's my pet project, not that we're spending it all.
Sure.
When was the last time a Republican came in and actually cared about balancing the budget? They say those things during the campaign, fiscally responsible, and then they become president or they get control of the House and Senate, and they don't do anything that they promise because I shouldn't say all. A lot of them are corrupt. There's some good people in Congress on both sides of the aisle that generally want to do right by their constituents. But that number of people, sadly, is very small. Yeah. So when I say these things, I think it's fair to say these things because you could find a time when both sides of the aisle believed in a lot of these things that shouldn't be there. It's just which side is on that now. You know what I mean?
Sure. Then in a different spirit from the taxation question, Irish Okie also asked or proposed Notre Dame will have 2 games or less of wins by single-digit points.
Well, they had what 2 games like that this year, right, Trev?
Well, this
Miami
past year,
and A&M,
yeah,
right. And I believe I thought every one of their wins was by 10 or more points, correct?
Yes. Yeah. The only time that they played in a 1-possession game, they lost.
Right. So even if we count, let's just say they would have done what they needed to do. At the end of the game, they get a stop. They don't allow A&M go down to score. That's a 6-point win. They go down, score a touchdown. They protect CJ. CJ hits Jaden Greathouse on that over route, gets him into the territory. They go down. CJ throws a back shoulder fade to Malachi for the win. Irish win 31-27. That's a single digit win, right? Like I think it'll be something similar to that. I think you'll see 2 single digit wins this year. Possibly. It could only be 1 if we're being real about it. But between one of the 2 home games against Miami or SMU and the road game against BYU, it conceivably could be a 7 to 9 point game. Plus, you're also getting into, well, what if they score last?
Yeah.
You know, that's part of it as well. So I'll buy that. I'll buy that. That's reasonable to me.
Yeah. I'll buy that as well. That kind of keeps on track with what they've done the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, and it's what a lot of teams that win do. I mean, look, Indiana was pretty dominant against a pretty weak schedule this year. But if you look at the regular season, they still had 2 games that were decided by single digits. At Iowa was a 5-point game, and at Penn State was a 3-point game. And that was a pretty soft schedule. You know, I mean, Ohio State in 2024, even let's forget their two losses. They also had a 4-point win over Nebraska and a 7-point win over Penn State. So it's also in line with what we've seen from teams that have won in recent years. You know, I think, you know, Michigan obviously had some convincing wins in 2023 against a pretty soft schedule, right? But they still had 2 that were single digits. Actually, 3. Their last 3 wins of the regular season were all by single digits. They beat Penn State by 9, Maryland by 7, and Ohio State by 6. It's like even dominant teams against soft schedules, which I'm not including Ohio State, I'm talking 25 Indiana and 23 Michigan, had that. Because here's the thing. The game you thought would be a single-digit game for Indiana this year was a double-digit win. That was at Oregon. Yeah. So I think 2 is reasonable. I mean, if Notre Dame has less than that, I mean, goodness gracious, Trev. I mean, 2019 LSU had multiple single-digit wins. You know, I know Texas and Auburn for sure.
Alabama,
and then
was
Alabama had 3.
Win.
You know, so yeah, you had Texas was a 7-point win. You had that was 14, 3-point win over Auburn, 5-point win over Alabama. So they had 3 in the regular season. So let's go look and see about the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. I'm not sure what they did. Let's go see what Miami did in 01. They had a 26, 61, 22, blowout. Okay, they had 1 regular season game of double digits, and then another one was by 11. Let's look at 2013 Florida State. They had a dominant season as well against a soft schedule. Let's look at theirs. But the point is, Trev, is we're going through these. It's a rare thing to beat that many teams by double digits. Let's go Florida State in 2000. Yeah, Florida State in 2013 did not have a single game decided by single digits until the title game. And they played 3 ranked opponents that year in the regular season. They beat closest win was 14 to Boston College, I believe. 14. Yeah. 14 win over Boston College until the title game. They beat Auburn by 3. So that's probably, I would imagine, the last time we saw something like that. I could be wrong, but like 19 LSU didn't do it. Last year, Indiana didn't do it. Ohio State didn't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wonder 2021 Georgia, they lost a game. You know what I mean? Like they lost the SEC championship. And then I think they had a single-digit game against Missouri, I think, didn't they, that year? They had a 7-point win over Clemson. And now it's a dominant football team. 7-point win over Clemson. And, okay, they did not – they had 1 single-digit game that year. That was and then lost to Alabama in the SEC title game. So if you want to count that, count that. But regular season-wise, only had 1. That was the 2021 Alabama team. And then the 22 Georgia team, and then the 22 Georgia team had, let's see here. They had, come on. So they blowout, 17. So they had a 4-point win over Missouri and a 10-point win over Kentucky. So like they were close. They had dominance. And that was, again, in a stretch where we have said before, the SEC was very soft. Because you know what you don't see on Georgia's schedule in 2022? You don't see Alabama. Let's see who they play in the West. They played Auburn in 2022, and they played Mississippi State. That was the crossover games they had that year. No Alabama, no Texas A&M, no LSU. Like the top 3 teams in the West that year were LSU, who ranked 16th. They didn't play them. Alabama, who was 5th. They didn't play them, and then they beat Mississippi State, who was ranked with 4 losses. So that was a softer schedule, and they dominated it, but still had the 1. So I would say it's reasonable for Notre Dame to have 2.
Sure.
I just wanted to talk myself. Like, is it really as unreasonable as we think? I think based on looking at that, I think it's fair to say that would be quite an impressive season. If they go 12-0 and only 2 of those games are decided by single digits, it's an impressive season. It's something 2019 LSU didn't do.
From Eddie 82, Anias Williams, 655 total yards rushing plus receiving career to date, will exceed the career totals of Dexter Williams, 1,798 career total yards, but fall short of Kyron Williams' 2,828 career total yards.
I think that's fair because, like, based on what we bought earlier, Trev, of the 1,125, that gets him really close to Dexter if that's all he does this year.
Yeah.
He's right. If I'm doing the math correctly, he'd be like, 15 to 20 yards below, what was it, 1125? So that'd get him to 1780, right? So he'd be 18 yards behind Dex if he just does that. So unless he goes pro after the season, then yeah, that's he'll pass that. He would have to be, that'd be 2 heck of seasons. He'd have, here's the thing though, Trev, if he just does this for 2 years in a row, he would do that. But honestly, if you're Anias and you come out and have a really good year, you have to think about, like, do I really want to come back and compete against those guys? Are only going to get better and better. Or do I ride the hot hand and go pro? I don't know. Depends on how good the draft class is next year.
Yeah, that, or if he continues to enter every spring with like the elbow injury again, do you want to have to go through that again? What if it gets worse? Yeah, so I'd buy it for now, but it wouldn't surprise me if he passed both. He has the opportunity to, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, just to follow up on a question that people, like Insured by Big asked this, and somebody else asked this. When the previous question about the double digits, I took that as regular season.
Yeah.
I was not factoring the postseason. I was talking about just the 12 regular season games. When we were talking about Ohio State and we were talking about Indiana and past teams, we were talking about what they did in the regular season. We weren't counting postseason games. So yeah, just so we're clear, we were talking about the 12 regular season games. The questioner may have meant all 16, but that's not how I took it. I took it as 12 regular season.
Yep. And then Notre Dame will be a top 10 nationally in red zone scoring defense, defined by the percentage of red zone touchdowns allowed in 2026.
If Chris Ash has the philosophy that I think he's going to have this, or hope that he has this year, I'll buy that.
Same.
Yeah, I'll buy that. Because he said touchdown percentage, right? And last year, Notre Dame was 47th at 56. I think when you look at some of the things we saw early in the season and then late in the season, I think the odds of them being much improved and being a top 10 team go up dramatically. And if they do barely miss the top 10, I would argue that that'll be more due to the backups giving up touchdowns. But like they gave up 6 touchdowns on 8 red zone attempts in the first 2 games. That wasn't good.
No.
Yeah. And then gave up 3 out on 3 in the last 2 games, which were all against backups. So yeah, it's much better. Actually, I'm curious what their number would have been. So if you take the first 2 games out, they've only given up 8 touchdowns in the last 10 games. That's it. On 17 opportunities. So that'd have been 47.1, which would have ranked them last year 10th, right ahead of Wake Forest, because Wake Forest was 47.17. They were 10th. They'd have been 10th. So, yeah. They should.
Absolutely. Another one from Eddie82. The top 5 40-yard dash times on the current roster would be Leonard Moore, Bubba Frazier, Cam Williams, Matt Jeffrey, and Jonas Walton. No particular order.
Trying to think DBs. And receive. I'll probably buy that. I'd probably buy that. I mean, those are. I mean, Bubba Frazier and Jonas Walton certainly have 2 of the better track times. Yeah, I'll probably buy that. I'm trying to think of who I might be missing, but I think that's a pretty good reflection on it. Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah. Maybe somebody like a Christian Gray could give like Jonas Walton a run for his money.
Or
Maybe.
Matt Jeffrey, maybe.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's a pretty solid 5.
Jonas, I believe, had better track times in high school than Bubba did, or maybe I got it backwards. I maybe I have it backwards. Let me go look these up, because I remember one time I was trying to find Bubba Frazier's track times, and so I kept typing in Bubba Frazier and I couldn't find it, and I was like, okay, what's his real name? And it's Chris. So I typed that in and eventually found it. But Jonas's best 100-meter dash time was a 10.6 flat, and Chris's was a 10.54. Okay, so Chris's Bubba is slightly faster than Jonas. Yeah, Jonas Walton is a 10.6 100-meter dash.
That's cooking.
That's really moving. Actually, there's this there's a website. Now it's not a direct science, because there's no way to truly calculate a 40-yard like a 40-yard dash, a 100-meter dash to a 40, because some guys are better starters, some guys are better closers. Like some guys are better in the 200 because they get their max speed a lot later, where some guys are just so explosive with those short bursts that's why they're great 100-meter sprinters. But a 10.6 in the 100-meter dash converts to around a 4.42. That's cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tae Johnson will be the first safety taken in the 2027 NFL draft.
I'll buy it as a possibility. Yeah, I'll buy it as a possibility. I don't know that I could say definitively that's the case, because if for no other reason, then I haven't really thought through who all the draft eligible safeties might be next year. I mean, that's really, but yeah, I mean, I think he's got a chance to be one of the 2 or 3 best safeties in college football. He'll be a 2-year starter as long as he can stay healthy. I think that's a possibility. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of me just wants to sell it so he comes back in 2027. But if Notre Dame has the season that I think that they're going to have, I could see him going.
If they win a title, I don't even care who goes pro. You've earned it. Let's restock and
Sure.
let's get back at it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
Notre Dame won't be adding anybody else from the transfer portal for the 26 season.
I buy that. I buy that. I mean, there's a couple guys out there I think they might be interested in. Now, keep in mind, there is no portal in the spring. Now, there may be some guys that sue and do some different things, and I don't think Notre Dame's going to get into that business. There are, however, some guys out there that have not picked schools yet from when they jumped in January, and they can sign it at any point in time. So it's possible, but as of right now, I don't see it. I don't see them adding another quarterback. I think if they were going to do that, they would have spent the money they needed to get someone here for the spring. But it's a possibility that they don't like where the freshmen develop and all that. I don't think that's going to be the case. Because I don't know, like, what quarterback out there that isn't committed somewhere right now that's in the portal is going to come in and do better than what a Blake Hebert or a Noah Grubbs or Teddy Gerard could do.
Sure.
I just feel like somebody would have made sure that kid picked him by now. So I'll sell that. I mean, I'll buy that. I'll buy that they won't be adding anybody else.
From JG Whitetown, white pizza with hot peppers, veggie pizza, broccoli and cauliflower and ranch, or a meat lover's pizza?
I will buy the idea that I will never have a hot peppers pizza. I will hold on to the hard, fast belief I have that I will never have a pizza that has broccoli, cauliflower, or ranch on it. And I'll sell the notion that I would have a meat lover's pizza.
Wouldn't like a meat lover's pizza?
Nah, there's just some of the meat on there I don't love. I don't like the kind of sauces they put on pizza. I could do it, but I wouldn't like it. If I had to eat one of them, I had to buy, Brian, you have to buy one legitimately that you would eat. I'd buy meat lovers. But I wouldn't. I'd just be like, I'm good. I'm good.
I'll probably buy meat lovers, hold white pizza with hot peppers. I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to sell a veggie pizza because pizza has to have meat on it, in my opinion. Like, I understand there's like margarita pizzas and all that. I think pizza has to have some sort of meat on it. That's just my personal preference. Then back to the football question. Who will have the most sacks as a unit, the DBs, the safeties, or the defensive tackles?
I wonder if he meant LBs there instead of DBs. What are your thoughts, Trev? Because he says safeties in the next one. They're DBs. And I doubt he meant corners, right? So
yeah, I'm thinking
LBs.
I'm thinking he was well, I mean, if it's LBs, then that makes my answer pretty easy. But I'm thinking he's going with 3 position groups that don't typically record a lot of sacks.
I get that, but why would DBs and safeties be separated? That's what I.
No, agreed. Like that's why I didn't know if he meant corner, like CBs instead of CD.
Okay, that's true. It could be CBs instead of LBs. Well, let's answer it both ways. If it's LBs, I think what would your answer be?
Oh, if it's linebackers, I'm buying linebackers. I'm holding defensive tackles, and I'm selling safeties.
I would buy defensive tackles, hold linebackers, and sell safeties. Now, yeah, that's where I would be. It's close, but that's where I would be.
Then if it's
DBs, corners, then that's an easy one. It's buy tackles, hold safeties, sell corners.
Yeah, agreed. Then Notre Dame will have how many receiving touchdowns? 25, 30, 35, or more?
Regular season, I think it'll probably be closer to 30. I could be wrong, but if I was you know what? Screw it, Trev. I'm going to be in a good mood today. I'm going to buy 35 or more, hold 30, sell 25 for the regular season. For the entire season, it's the same exact order. That one's even easier. But even regular season, I'm going to say that CJ's around 35 or more this year. It's an average of 3 a game, slightly less than 3 a game. And I think he'll have some 4 or 5 touchdown games, and fewer of the 1s and 0s that we saw this year because he doesn't have number 4 and 24 that he's trying to get the ball to. And I think if the O-line is better and, you're going to have some really good red zone weapons, and Cooper Flanagan's been a pretty good touchdown per catch guy, you know what I mean, in his career. And I think getting Jaden Greathouse healthy would be huge. And I think the big thing for me, Trev, is I think you've got a receiving core more capable of scoring longer touchdowns than maybe last year.
Yeah, that's not bad. I think I'm going to. How many receiving touchdowns will Notre Dame have this year?
Ask a question for you, Trev. Right now, are you pondering regular season answer?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we include playoffs, it's easy for you, right? 35 by 35. Okay, so regular season is what you're thinking about now. So buy 35 or buy so hold 35 or more, 30 or 25. I think the sell is easy, right, Trev? The 25.
Yeah, because he surpassed that last year. The thing that I'm in between is 30 to 35 in a regular season. I think for the regular season, I'll buy 30, hold 35. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely possible, and neither one is out of the realm of possibility. 35 touchdowns is a good amount in the regular season. Like some of it comes out. I agree with the rationale that there won't be as much 4 and 20. Well, there will be no 4 and 24 in the backfield, so that's true.
Sadly,
no, I know, to the dismay of the two esteemed gentlemen on this screen. But I think there's going to be a lot of games where CJ doesn't end up playing in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how many passing touchdowns he's going to be throwing. Now, granted, this just says receiving touchdowns. I mean, nothing says that Blake Hebert or Noah Grubbs or Teddy Girard doesn't come in and throw one. But I'll buy 30, hold 35, sell 25.
Yeah, because they had 25 last year, to your point. So they got that one last year, and that was with those guys. I mean, Fernando Mendoza only had 32 going into 33 going into the playoffs. That included the Big Ten title game.
Yeah.
And he won the Heisman. But to your point though, but then you're like, okay, but his backup threw 5. You know what I mean? And none of them were in the postseason. So regular season they had 36. And they still ran a ball. So I think it's a reasonable. It's not like a crazy number to think of.
Right.
And and the reason I point to Indiana is not just because he won the Heisman last year and they're the champs, but also they played a schedule where they were blowing a lot of teams out. Here's the difference though. I'd be very curious to see how many touchdowns Fernando Mendoza threw in the second half of games. And I'll bet you it's a lot higher percentage than like CJ Carr's number was.
Oh, agreed. I mean, Cignetti wasn't pulling Mendoza against Purdue when they were up big. I think he even played a little bit against Indiana State in the second half, and they were taking him to the woodshed.
Yeah, like the Purdue game 2 years ago was kind of gross.
Yeah,
you remember that? And you're like, dude, what are you doing?
Curtis Rourke was in there throwing bombs in the fourth quarter.
I know it was gross.
It's like, I get it. It's your first year as a head coach. You want to make a statement and the rival and against your in-state rival, but it's like, all right, come on.
Yeah,
bro.
He didn't throw any in the second half against Indiana State. I'm just looking here real quick. He did throw 3 in the second half against Kennesaw State. Now they were up 21-6 at halftime, but still, come on, bro. Purdue this year, he threw 1, 2 in the second half against Purdue when they were up 28-3 at halftime. I think, let's see, Maryland was a game they won 55-10. He threw none in the second half. They had a bunch of rushing touchdowns. UCLA, they won 56-6. They were up 35-3 at halftime. Let's see. He had a touchdown run and a touchdown pass. So he threw one in that game too, which is kind of ridiculous. He had 2 touchdowns. Just one of them was rushing. And then Illinois, he threw 1 in the third quarter against Illinois as well, despite being up 35-10 at halftime. So, yeah, I don't know that CJ Carr is going to get that many.
Yeah, so 8 of his 32 passing touchdowns came in the second half of games.
Blowout games.
Yeah.
That doesn't include games that were close.
Yeah.
I don't think that CJ will have that many in the second half. So, meaning he'll have to throw a lot more in the first 3 quarters to get there, especially the first 2 against some of these teams.
From T-Shop 11, a generational quarterback, you can build him in a lab with an awful
So my bad on this. I couldn't fit all of it in there. This is actually where it's like I believe it's buy one, sell one, hold one. Let me pull up the buy, sell, hold. Because that's my fault because it's missing some context. So let me just pull it up here real quick, Trev. It is buy one, sell one, hold one of these awful situations. So these are all three meant to go together, not separately. So that's my fault I couldn't fit all of it in there. So
No worries. No worries. So buy one, sell one, hold one. Option number one is a generational quarterback. You can build him in a lab, but he has just an awful bad offensive line. Option number two is a top 5 secondary. You can build your scheme and choose your players, but the defensive line and linebackers that generates literally zero pressure. And then third option is the greatest of all-time special teams trickery, i.e. fake punts, fake field goal, baiting a team into using timeouts, but a below 50% field goal and PAT rate.
Of those three, I would probably buy the top 5 secondary, but a D-line and linebacker that generates literally zero pressure. The reality is that doesn't mean that I'm not a great run defense. I don't have to generate pressure to be a great run defense, and then putting teams in 3rd and 9s and 3rd and 10s. I could live with that. It wouldn't be good, but I could live with that. And then, because in that scenario, if they can't get pressure, I'm doing a lot of drop 7s and drop 8s on 3rd down and being a really good zone team with my elite secondary. I'll hold the greatest of special teams trickery, blah blah blah, but a below 50% field goal PAT rate, because the reality is we saw Notre Dame go 10-2 and score 42 points a game with that last year. And then I will sell a generational QB with an awful, just plain bad O-line, because he won't be a generational QB at that point in time, assuming he can even make it through the season.
Sure. Yep. Same order.
I don't think you can win a title any of those ways, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with, it's probably what I would do. The last couple here, Trev.
From A. Sokolowski, buy, sell, hold. The transfer portal will be fixed in the next 2 years.
Fixed. I'm going to sell that. I think they will make adjustments to it. I don't know that I would consider it fixed. Improved to me doesn't mean fixed. It just means improved. It still has a problem.
Agreed. How about NIL? Will that be fixed in the next 2 years?
Same, improved, but not fixed. Again, right now they're waiting on Congress to do a lot of these things. And I don't know that Congress does a whole lot of things well. I mean, look, there's a current issue being discussed a lot that when you look at all polling, it's an 80% favorability opinion in the United States amongst voters, but neither party wants to pass it. Neither party wants to pass it. And so it's like, that's something with massive popular support. This is not something that necessarily has that. You think they're going to act quickly on that? And I don't see it. And I've said this before. This is an issue that I think that that politicians on both sides would like to keep around because it's something that they can campaign on. With midterms coming up in November, do you think this is a big hot button issue that one side or the other wants the other side to get credit for it? Of course not. So I sell that those things get done for that reason alone. But improved, yes. Fixed, no.
And then one thing I'm confident that I know I'm going to buy at least is the playoff will expand again in the next 2 years.
That I buy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That I buy. It may not be all the way to 16, but we'll at least go to 14. Mm-hmm. I agree with that, Trev. I buy. And this is the last one, Trev.
From Josh Buffo, the motivational business banker. Notre Dame, buy one, or I guess buy one, sell one, hold one. It's kind of like our way of putting it in order.
Yep.
Notre Dame has a top 5 defensive line, offensive line, and wide receiver room.
So let's answer this both ways, Trev. Let's answer buy one, hold one, sell one, and then let's do buy, sell, hold for each one. I think that creates an interesting pick. The one is obviously harder. Notre Dame has a top 5 D-line. I will buy that because I think they had a top 5 D-line last year.
Yep.
And I think this year's D-line is even better players.
Yep.
I mean, look, they were a top 10 run defense last year, and they led the nation in pressures from the defensive line, according to Pro Football Focus. Neither of the other two were top 10 last year, much less top 5.
Yep.
You could argue they weren't top 5. To me, it's not debatable that they were top 10. So it's a lot easier. It's a much quicker path for them to go, let's just say we all agree they weren't top 5. They were 9th. That still puts them closer to being a top 5 unit than the O-line or the receiver room, and the talent is improved than what it was last year. So I'll buy it. I'll buy that one. I will hold the wide receiver, the O-line room, because I think the O-line talent should be that of a elite group. And a lot of the guys that we saw last year are back. There's no new guys. There's no portal guys that were building the offensive line around. So I think that's an easier path. And then I'll sell the receivers because the gap of where you are, of what we know, to where you need to be a top 5 room is pretty significant compared to the O-line. Not significant, overall, because I think we both agree that this receiver room will be a top 10 room this year. But as far as just, for me, the path from where they are starting to getting to that point, that's why I say. And I think it's splitting hairs between the O-line and the receiver room. But I'll buy O-line, D-line, hold O-line, and sell the receiver room in that order. So that's how I'll do buy, sell, hold if I have to pick one. Trev, what say you? And then then give me your answer for the second part of it, where you have to buy, sell, hold each one.
Yeah, we have the exact same order for buy one, sell one, hold one. I'm buying D-line, holding offensive line, selling wide receiver room. If we're buy, sell, holding each one, I would buy the defensive line because, like you said, they were a top 5 unit last year. I said this before. I'll say it again, and I'll probably say it again at some point this offseason. Notre Dame had one of the most underrated defensive – like Notre Dame's defensive line was probably one of the most underrated units in the country last year. And I think they're going to be better this year. So definitely buy that they were a top 5 D-line this year. Offensive line, I'm going to hold. And here's why. I think they have the skill to. That the talent in the room is not a question. My question is around the coaching. Now, a big hurdle in getting, seemingly, depending on if the first lineup that we saw in spring practice holds throughout the rest of the year. Now the question is development. Can they put it all together for 1 year? I think they have absolutely top 5 talent in the room, but you could argue they had top 5 talent in the room in 2023. They were not a top 5 offensive line in 2023. They had a top 5 NFL draft pick on that offensive line, and they weren't a top 5 unit in 2023. So I have some questions about that. And then wide receiver room, I'm also going to hold. I think they have the talent to be. I love the depth in the room. But there's still some things, and I think he's done a pretty good job up to this point. But there's things that I need to see from Mike Brown to get them over that hump of being a top 5 unit. So I'm, in terms of buy, sell, holding each one, I'm buy, hold, hold.
So buying D-line, we already said that one. I'm going to buy the O-line, Trev, because here's my counter. If we were having a debate, here would be my counter to your 2023 comment. Yes, I would grant the premise that they had a top 5 O-line, but then I would argue, I said, but they didn't have their 5 best guys on the field.
Sure.
Therefore, insert reason why they weren't that good. Same thing in 2024 and same thing in 2025. The issue wasn't that they didn't have the talent to be there. It's that they didn't have the right guys on the field in the right spots. The one thing that gives me hope this year is that you'll have, I think, based on what we've seen so far, the right guys in the right spots. Number one. I think the overall talent level across the board, even if I said, okay, well, then I don't grant that premise that I just said. You don't grant that premise that I just said. You say, okay, Brian, they had top 5 talent in 23. The best guys were on the field. I say, okay, cool. Okay, let's grant that premise. I still think the overall talent top to bottom of the 25 O-line, 6 O-line is going to be better than the 23 O-line. No, right now I would not predict anyone is going to be as good as what Joe Alt was. Even Gerby, who I think is going to be, I think Gerby could be as good in 26 as Joe Alt was in, like, let's say, 22, right? His sophomore year,
Sure.
Second year as a starter, something like that. But I would argue 2 through 5, they're going to be better. I think Anthony Knapp this year will be better. So let's say Gerby versus Joe Alt, advantage 23 O-line. Agree?
Yeah.
Do you agree that as of what we know right now that their number 2 offensive lineman is Anthony Knapp?
Yeah.
I think Anthony Knapp as a guard is going to be better than what Blake Fisher was as a right tackle. Number 3, it's basically we had, who were the other starters? We had the center was Zeke Correll. Zeke Correll. Your guards were Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler. I think your number 3 for this current group is probably Ashton Craig. I would take him over the number 3 for that group, which I'd say probably was Zeke. I think Ashton Craig is better than Zeke. They both had injury problems. I think Ashton is a better player than Zeke. Not by a ton. I like Zeke Correll. I think he's an underrated player, but I think Ashton is better. And then it comes down to your number 4 guy is Will Black or Rocco Spindler. I think it's Will Black, and then it's Sullivan Absher against Pat Coogan. And I would go with Sullivan Absher. So that's really where it comes down to for me is even then, I still think the 2 through 5 is better than the one at the top. And I think overall it's the best place. Now, if you'd have had Billy Shrouth and Ashton Craig in the lineup in 2023, we might be having a different conversation.
Sure.
But they didn't. Look, the expectation is they better be a top 5 offensive line. And I actually have a lot of confidence that Joe Rudolph's going to get that out of him this year. I do. I don't know why, and I don't have reason for it, but I just do. I have a lot of faith that this offensive line is going to be legit, barring another year of disaster injuries. And I'm not including Charles Jagasaw because I'm not going to include him in any O-line projections until I see him on the field playing like he did before the injuries. Kid has 5 surgeries on an elbow. I'm not even if he does, even if you tell me you looked into the future and all you could tell is that he was healthy enough to be cleared to play, I'd be like, all right, cool. What does he look like after having 5 surgeries on an elbow? Like, I don't know that he's going to have the power, the strength. Can he lift I don't know any of those things. Receiver room, that one I'm going to hold for now, Trev, because I think they've got the potential to be so, but they've got to show me a lot more on that one.
Agreed.
They have to show me a lot more. And
literally,
to be honest with you, I've got to do more studying of the receiver rooms around the country to confidently say that even if I do think they maximize their potential, I would need to study the rest of college football a little bit more to say that they're definitively in the top 5, where I'm pretty comfortable with what we know of the D lines and O lines, because we've actually had to go through and study rankings, and we've actually broken those down and we've done those rankings, the
Sure.
2 of us.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, for the receiver room, a big step in the right direction is just making it out of the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the last 2 years, it's been like, hey, this guy's having a great offseason. He's going to be a player for us. And then the season rolls around and then it's crickets and we don't see him. Like, because this happened or this guy got hurt or this hand got hurt or this wrist got hurt or this hamstring got hurt. So if you just make it out of the offseason, that's a huge step in the right direction for the receiving room. I'm with you there completely.
Yep. Sorry, my wife is at the grocery store and she's asking me questions. So love it. Love that lady. All right, Trev, that was the last one. I think, did we have any super chats that popped up? No, we have no super chats that popped up. So, my dude, that is going to do it. Or we did that at the same time.
Yeah.
Sorry. That'll do it for today's show, man. I told y'all in the lead up into the show that y'all did a great job of just bringing it today on the Beisel holds. Very, very well done, guys. I've always felt that the success of a Beisel hold literally comes down to we could give great answers to bad questions and it's not a great show because it's not interesting questions. If we give bad answers to great questions, I think that even still makes for a better show because it can, Brian's answer was stupid, but that's a fun talking point. Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? I thought today I liked our answers. I thought I enjoyed it, but I thought great submissions, just really from start to finish. You guys really brought it today, and you've been doing that a lot this offseason. So if the Notre Dame team is as amped up and performing at the level that the IB subscribers are, this is going to be a fun season, Trev. It's going to be a fun season. I can't wait.
Well, I can't wait either. Folks, that is going to do it for us here today on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Now, Notre Dame's Pro Day is tomorrow. So, Brian, show tomorrow because the Pro Day is like 12:30 to 2.
So, yeah, to be determined.
Okay.
I got to talk with Trevor about some things. We won't be able to do it till like 3-ish. And then we could just do like a quick rundown. I don't love that idea before Sean's show at 5. So most likely no show tomorrow. And then we will do a recap of Pro Day as part 1 of our midweek rundown on Wednesday. And because, I mean, that's going to be jam-packed because we're going to get a 4-quarter practice period in the morning. And then we're going to get, we'll talk about the Pro Day. So it's going to be a lot of fun on Wednesday. But yes, most likely no show tomorrow. Maybe, Trev, and you and I will talk about this, like once you get home, maybe we do a show at night. We'll see. So, guys, I don't want to promise a show tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. And I agree, Raymond. Thank you for that. I agree. But so TBD right now, project no, but that's why you need to be subscribed and put your notifications on, because if we do decide to do a show before or after, like later in the day, you guys will get that notification. But as of right now, the answer is no. We'll see. We'll see how we feel. It depends on how the pro day goes. If there's a lot of awesome stuff, like Trev, hustle home, get back to Indy. And when you do, make dinner for your wife, and then we're doing a show. We're going live at 8. Just a lot of it depends on that.
Well, folks, on your way out of here, be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe. You heard Brian. Make sure you have that notification bell hit and you are subscribed to this channel, whatever streaming platform you listen to us on. We would greatly appreciate a 5-star review. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. It's the best way to stay in tune. Spring practice is going on. The pro days tomorrow. There's a lot of recruiting intel on the board right now from the big junior day that they had this past weekend. Boards.irishbreakdown.com is the place to be. So until next time, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.